Hello everyone and welcome to another round of the ACC Carib Sim Motorsport Championship. We are this time at the Nürburgring. A lovely circuit, I think everyone can agree. Some overtaking opportunities all around the track, and one the drivers have been looking forward to for a while. It's a endurance special this time round. 2 hours of lovely racing to look forward to, as well as the usual qualifying. Bit shorter this time, 20 minutes for everyone, 10 minutes in the GT4s, 10 minutes in the GT3s. But yeah, I think it's going to be a very, very good one. This is, of course, powered by Turn 1, Team Turn 1. They are a sim racing community, or should plug their Discord a bit later, where you can go and get all your sim racing needs fulfilled. Of course, the CSM Discord as well, but I'll come on to them during the race, because I'll have 2 hours to try and fill with my lovely voice, and we'll see how that goes on. But for now, as you can see, we're currently looking at Brian Mandeville's lovely CSM blue and yellow livery. But we will currently go see how the GT4s are getting on. First 10 minutes are for the GT4s. And, well, with everything going on, it's looking like it could be quite a good race. As we just flick to Mr. Dixon Hurst going around in his BMW with some interesting points. There's a little bit of connection there. Hopefully that should sort itself out. As we're going around, seeing him in his BMW M4. 5 minutes left of qualifying. Plenty of time for things to happen. No one yet to set a lap. So let's just leave it with Dixon for now, as I suspect he is on his first flying lap. And we can see how he gets on with the Nürburgring. In fact, for his second flying lap, if he decides to stay out, in fact, we might just ride on board with him and see what the track has in store for us. A very exciting track here at the Nürburgring. Loads of fast corners, also some slower ones mixed in as well. Good braking zones at the beginning and end of the circuit. But you can also try a cheeky one around the outside if you're so inclined. So as Dixon comes across the line, he does set a time that puts him in third place. I was about to say second, but he's been jumped by Damieo in the Mercedes. So as Dixon decides to go around, we will in fact just jump to the 713 of Sean McBride, because he is about to cross the line to start a flying lap if he decides to stay out. His lovely Porsche Cayman GT4. Right on board, see what a lap of the Nürburgring looks like. Down into turn 1. Heavy braking zone, heavy on the brakes, about that just before the 100 marker board. Castrol S, chuck it in. Use all the track on the left. You've got to come a little bit further right though. You'll see having to use a bit more of the brakes than perhaps Sean would have wanted. Running it out all the way to the right through the Mercedes arena section. Then again, hard on the brakes. Very tricky corner this. Incredibly late apex. Want to get really far to the left and then chuck it right. Can be quite liberal with the curb on the inside there, but very tempting also to use the runoff on the left there, but go too far wide and you will incur some track limits penalties. It's just a dab on the brakes coming into this left-hander, turn 6, then into forward curve, turn 7. Keep it nice and tight to the right as you can. Squeeze on the power as early as you dare in these GT4s. It will be quite lively. Of course, it will be the GT3s as well, but with less downforce will be something just to think about. Then into the Dunlop curve, very famous corner here at the Nürburgring. But then to go through even more famous corners coming up to the Schumacher S's. Named after that one, Michael, yes, we wish him well. Just a dab of brake, perhaps use a little more of the curve on the left there and on the right, but Sean voting not to try and push track limits this time around. It's going to be hard on the brakes. Just before the 100 metre board, use all of the curb on the left, you can get right over that, and also all of this on the right. Perhaps a little bit too much there for Sean, but enough just to get the nose in at turn 12. Then a nice long straight, just technically a turn in the middle, but it is completely flat. All the way up to the very famous chicane section. Running the endurance chicane here at the Nürburgring, not the tighter one, which fans of F1 might know. This is just more of a GT-friendly, less downforce orientated set of chicane. Then into the final corner, try and veer it as much as possible. Get a massive run coming down the straight. And then you across the line under the BMW M-Power bridge. And that will be a lap for Sean McBride. Does manage to improve, does a 2:09.1. He does have enough time for another lap. In fact, he might get 2 in if he does gets a little bit of a shift on. And that does in fact put Mr. McBride in 8th place as it currently stands, 4 seconds off the leader. So most of the GT4s out as we speak. 2 yet to set a lap in the form of Derek Rudder and Javon Codrington. In fact, Javon is currently just started a lap. So let's just see how Javon gets on. Coming down through the first corner, very nicely done. In his trusty Aston Martin GT4. Aston Martin, very nice car to drive in the GT4 class, nice and neutral, good starter car if you're at all interested in learning the GT4s. Something not too hideously understeery, not too hideously oversteery, just something to keep you nice and balanced as you make your way around any track of your choice. If you're looking for something a bit sketchier, I would suggest perhaps well, actually, there aren't too many sketchy GT4s other than the Ginetta, but no one's here driving the Ginetta because they're not brave enough. That is the only car that is acceptable in the GT4 class, in my opinion. The rest are all just pointless. But I'm willing to be proved wrong, Mr. Codrington, just going through turn, I've forgotten the number of it, turn 8. Now coming up through the Schumacher S's, lovely camera angle up top. Has a much tighter line there than McBride did, uses much more of the curb as well, running it out to the left. It's going to be heavy on the anchors once again. Coming into turn 11. Could use a little more of the curb perhaps, but if he managed to carry the speed through, not going to be too detrimental to him. And now, coming up the final straight. Heavy braking zone coming into the final chicane. One you've got to get right. Because if you find yourself braking too late, all you're going to do is understeer off into the grass, and come the race conditions, you're going to rejoin and probably take someone out. And this will in fact be Javon's final lap. This is all the final laps for the GT4 field. He's going to cross the line to set his first and only time, which will be a 2:08.6 to put him 7th place in the GT4 field. The next to cross the line, well, will be the number 840 of, I believe that's Derek Rudder, but Derek has invalidated his lap, so a very unfortunate set of qualifying there for Derek Rudder, who pulls off and will return to garage. Next will be the 360 of Sonky B in the turn 1 Porsche Cayman. See, obviously already in first place by just over a second, so no need to worry about improving. A good lap there from Sonky. And now the next across the line though is Dami Ayo. He's got a couple of corners left in his AMG GT4. If he's going to want to have any chance of taking away the pole spot with the GT4 class, he's got to get this absolutely right. In fact, no, he decides to pull into the pits. It's not worth it. He must have been down on his lap. And he's bailed into the pit lane. And that is the GT4 qualifying over and done with, all completed. This does mean that the GT3s can come out to play and show us what they can do and probably go about 10 seconds quicker, is the general rule of thumb. First on track for them is the number 92 of Santeri Rantala in his Ferrari 488 GT3. He's wearing his CSM livery proud. And just behind we've got the number 19 of Dominic Livier in his Aston Martin, which you see in the background there. But we'll stick with Santeri, see how he gets on this first lap of his qualifying. This will be his first flying run. Don't expect it to be his quickest, perhaps just a banker, as well. He's still got to warm up the tyres and brakes completely. But we'll see how he gets on. So, at the end of qualifying, of course, I will run through the whole order and just jump through all of the standings, GT4 and GT3. But while the GT3 is going around, we'll stick with them, stick with Santeri for now. It's a very pretty Ferrari. I do like the green, goes well with the black. I never thought I'd say that, but green does go well with black. There you go, for all your designers watching. I have solved everything for you. If only that were true. Now, there seems to be a relatively clean lap so far from Santeri. Nothing too untoward happening thus far. Hitting all his marks, hitting his apexes. That's all you really need to do. Now on his way down to turn 8 again. Lovely banked section of the circuit this. You really need to chuck it to the inside. Use all of that camber to your advantage. If you just find yourself sliding wide, you're going to run into the gravel on the exit very early. You run out of road quite quickly if you get that wrong. But with the camber, of course, does mean you can get on the brakes very late, and if you get to the inside, it is a brilliant overtaking spot. But then the drivers know that, so they always cover it nice and early. So it'll promote some interesting racing for the next 2 hours, which I'm certainly looking forward to. Previous races, if they're anything to go by, absolutely spectacular, of course. Unfortunately, the last round at Snetterton was not able to broadcast, but we're back now. And before that, it's likes of Zandvoort and Bathurst, and then before that, it was I think Silverstone. No, it wasn't. Oh well, I can't remember round 2, but there we go. Anyway, Santeri's just about to cross the line. Professional commentating. Santeri's just about to cross the line. He's completed his first flying lap. I believe it has stayed valid. It has, and he's done a 1:54.1, just over 10 seconds quicker than the GT4s. Olivier crosses the line second, puts himself obviously in second place. 5 tenths off Santeri Rantala. Next across the line will be the number 12 of... Who is the number 12? James Dill. Ryan Quinn also crossing the line. We're going to do is jump to the number 78 of Jamal Perdue in his Mercedes AMG, coming up to the final set chicanes. Oh, just a clip of the grass there on the outside from Jamal, pushing track limits to the extremists, I should say, not the extremists. We don't want any of them. But then takes a nice wide line on entry, squeezing on the power, perhaps lining up a run there. Ooh, gets a little close to the wall and squirrely on exit as well, Jamal. It's a good job you've got 5 minutes left to qualifying, otherwise that would have been quite messy. 2 seconds down on Rantala, but we know Jamal can get closer than that, so not the cleanest of laps for himself. Next across the line, number 1 of Wilhelm Weyrich, the standing CSM ACC champion. He just put it on provisional pole, 1:54.0. Good time there from Wilhelm. A Porsche, obviously a good choice around this track. Patriotic and all that. Only half a tenth quicker than Rantala. He's going to have a tricky job to try and keep it there. But I'm confident Wilhelm will do the job. He's got another lap in him, I'm sure, or maybe 2, to try and improve things. But we're going to ride on board with the number 92. Nope, so apologies, not the number 92, the number 22. Of Grant Wilmot as he comes over the line. He's put himself 5th place, but he's going to have another go, I'm sure. He's in his BMW M6 GT3. God, words aren't falling out of my mouth today, aren't they? So you can see, you might have to miss the apex slightly there. You can get a bit closer to the curb, but trying to push the braking zone as much as possible. Not going to be surprised to see drivers just slightly overshooting the first turn. A lot more downforce for these GT3s compared to the GT4s. Try and keep it left as much as possible. Come over to the right, take all of that curb. Using the track as much as possible on the left. Like I said, don't want to go too far, the lap will be invalid. Someone's knocked the cones out of the way, good to see. Just after the inroad on the brakes, get back over to the left so you can maximise the turn in for this next right-hander. Down we go. Just perhaps lacking the slipstream of, I think it's Florian here's Lexus in front. Keeps it nice and tight, washes out a little. Double apex if you can, try and veer it so you get on the power in as straight a line as possible, coming as through the Schumacher S's now. Keep the momentum, just off the throttle, back on halfway through, using all of the curb on the right there, that's how you do it. Now it's going to be coming down on the brakes just before the 100 board. Using all of the track, takes more curb than we saw the GT4s do. Nibble on the right as well. Just to have a brake and wait for the throttle. It's very tempting to get on the throttle very early there. Just wash out into the gravel. Of course, then you don't end up in the gravel. You'll just get pulled off, probably into the wall, snap back across the track. It's seen it been done plenty of times before. Now someone's taken out the marker board, the 100 marker board. Not very helpful, but the 50 still exists. Just a little bit quick there for Grant as he made his way through. You can tell just hesitated, getting back on the throttle, but squeezing on the power again. coming over the line. Will he improve? He does improve by about 2/10, so 154.6. Manages to jump Olivier and... no, I think it was just Olivier who managed to jump there. But a reasonable lap there for Grant Wilmot, but I'm sure he feels he could be closer to Weirich. He has been in the past, but perhaps the Nürburgring just yet to bring the full potential of the Brit. There we go. So 2 minutes left of qualifying. We are just going to jump to the number 45 of Chris Corbin. His lap is currently invalid, but with 4th place, 7/10 off Weirich. He, of course, will be looking to improve as well. You can see how Chris gets on. In fact, he is slowing down, just giving room to the guys in front. Doesn't want his lap to be interrupted. He knows he's only got 1 left, so he's going to try and make it the best he possibly can. Keeps a tighter line there compared to some of Rantala and Grant Wilmot that we saw earlier. Interesting way of doing it. You'd thought you'd want to try and V the corner as much as possible, get as long a run as you can, but then hard on the brakes. Much closer to the curb there than Wilmot was. Good line so far from Chris Corbin. See the Bajan Bentley making its way round, blue and yellow, lovely colour scheme. Apex Fever Racing. You'd hope with a name like that he's hitting those apexes compared to Grant. Oh, big fishtail from Chris Corbin there, and he's gone off the track. That's lap invalidated. Qualifying over. Bish, bash, bosh. It comes to a stop on the inroad and teleports back to the pits. Unfortunate there for Corbin. I'm sure he was looking to try and improve as much as possible. So instead, jump to Oshweed Wilson in his Nissan GTR. A new choice for this time for this round of CSM Championship. Previously, can't quite remember what car Wilson was in the previous times, but it definitely was not the GTR. So who wants to go in that boat? Well, he's obviously one of them. There's rare breed of embracers who thinks that's a good car. Can you tell I'm biased against the GTR? It once tried to kill me. I wasn't happy. I got out of there and went to something better. But anyway, Wilson, number 86, just coming his way through the final chicane. This will be his final lap. Coming into the final corner for the last time of qualifying. Keep it nice and tight. Squeeze on the power. Where you go, under the line. Has he managed to improve? He has managed to improve. Setting a 1:55.5. Good lap there from Oshin. Next across the line, I think, was the number 8 of Paul Rees. Manages to, I think that was his first valid lap he's managed to set. Put himself P14. Wilhelm Weirich just coming around the final turn, but his lap is invalid, so we'll go to the number 24 of Brian Mandeville. It's CSM, producer, director, racer, all-round top bloke, as I say this regularly. Coming around for the final time, currently P11. Has he managed to boost himself up a little bit? He has put himself in 8th place. Good improvement there from Brian Mandeville, 56.2. But next is Grant Wilmot. He is just coming up to the final chicane again on a valid lap. To see if Grant has already managed to push himself up to 3rd place, so he's improved by a couple of attempts already. But Grant, well, an enthusiastic pit lane entry is what we'll call that. that skill, all skill that. But we'll jump to Olivier as he's the final car on a good lap. Just about to cross the line. Currently P4, 6/10 down. Has he managed to improve? He has not. And with that comes the end of the session. So we'll return to garage, so when it flicks I can control the cameras. Apparently not. So, qualifying over and done with. That was a good result there. In fact, we'll flick to the timetables, we'll look at quali, and we can see all the times that were posted. So, we'll run through the GT4s. First of all, they are towards the rear of the grid. In fact, no, we won't. We will go to Mr. Wilhelm Weirich, who is currently sitting on pole. Good showing so far from Weirich. He is often the quickest in a straight line. Over 1 lap. He often sticks it on pole here, but previously has had some rotten bit of luck with race pace and just avoiding incidents. Whether he's the creator or just the hapless bystander in them, Weirich does not have the best of luck when it comes to staying clean in these races. But he's managed to put it on pole with a 153.6. Good showing there from Weirich. Second place, Santeri Rantala, 53.8, as you can see, in his Ferrari. In the second row, we have Grant Wilmot and Mr. Olivier. 4 different, in fact, 6, 7 different cars in the top 7. This is why we love GT racing, isn't it? As you can see, this is just what you want to see. None of this all Mercedes on the front row or anything like that, or Toyota leading from the front rally. This is what we just... Oh, I could talk about that for hours, but I digress. Yeah, 4th place, Olivier. 5th place, 3rd row, Chris Corbin. We saw Chris have a slight incident. He did manage to keep it out of the wall, but did endeavour to find the grass on his last flying lap, meant it invalid. 6th place, Jamal Badou in his trusty Mercedes AMG. And then 7th place, Oisin Wilson, managing to pull that GTR to 7th place. That is a good going, the 155.5. Bit of a tight field, big field spread so far in the GT3s, but with 2 hours of racing, I can see that condensing quite a lot as we go through the race. 8th place, Mr. Mandeville. Good showing from Brian when I saw him improve originally from 11th to 8th place. Then 9th place, Florian here in his Lexus GT3. 10th place, Mr. James Dill, sticking with the trusty McLaren. A couple of fewer McLarens this time round than there have been previously in the championship. It was James and Paul Rees, the only McLarens so far in this race. Then in 11th, Mr. Ryan Quinn, sticking with his trusty Porsche GT3. Ryan often puts on a good show for us here at home. There's lovely overtakes. Of course, remember at Bathurst, he did put it in a wall, but we can gloss over that. What's crashing amongst friends, eh? 12th place, Stan Gulbranson. One of the only 2 Bentleys in this race. Turn 1, famed for their love of the Bentley, but a lot of their drivers opting this time out to go for something different. So only 2 Bentleys, Stan being one of them. 13th, Omar Badou. Omar setting a 158.0. Only... I say only, there was 5 tenths between him and Stan Gulbranson, so Omar clearly still has room to improve. I know he's thinking that, as is Paul Rees, but with only setting 1 valid lap, I think Paul Rees's last lap was very much a, can I just get one in please, so I'm ahead of the GT4s. As we've seen previously, sometimes the GT3s have started behind the GT4s when they don't settle lap, and that's not ideal for anyone in that situation. So then, we come to the GT4 field. There are 14 GT3s, and then there are 9 GT4s. So, Song Ki B, a new name to the CSM roster here. It's going with a GT4 Porsche Club Sport, setting a time of 2:04.9. He's managed to gap Damieo by just over a second in qualifying alone, so one to watch out for. Song Ki B might just run away with it, but we'll wait and see. Of course, it's a 2-hour race. Anything could happen. He could find a wall or anything in between that, another car to ruin his race. Of course, we don't wish that upon him. But as I said, 2nd place in GT4s, 16th overall, Damieo, a regular name in the GT4 field. Then 17th, Joel van der Valk puts on a good showing, often in a shout with the podium in the GT4s. Putting it on 3rd, he has done the best he possibly can to replicate that in this race. 18th place, come to Kevin Manning, sitting at 2:07.3, 5 tenths off of Mr. van der Valk. Then Dixon Hurst, putting it 19th in his BMW M4 GT4, the lone M4 in this race. Then John Petchier, the Camaro, the trusty Camaro, powerhouse. Went really well at Bathurst a couple of weeks ago, but with a few more corners involved, not doing so well this time out. But John is a good racer. I expect to see him further up the field as the race goes on. 21st place, Javon Codrington. Javon setting quite a decent time. Again, didn't get too many flying laps, valid flying laps in. We come to Malik Martin, sticking with his McLaren, the only McLaren GT4 that we have in the field. But Malik is a namesake around here. He is always one to show up, give it his all. Love Malik for that. Sean McBride, Not the best showing from Sean McBride. He would have, I'm sure, done slightly better than he has done this time round. Putting it in 23rd. And then bringing up the rear of the field, Mr. Derek Rudder in his Mercedes AMG GT4. So there we go. As we flick to the actual cameras, we can go back to as we see Mr. Olivier warming up his tyres. So, as they're doing this, I'll quickly talk you through the rule set. Of course, they have some rules to adhere to that are outside of the norms. So, there are 2 mandatory pit stops to fulfill, in which every single driver must change their tyres. They must change tyres every time they come into the pits. Fuel is not required, but if you manage to make it 2 hours without refueling, teach me, because I need to know how you do it. Then that's about it really for fuel stops. So they'll have two pit stops. They can take it any time. There is no pit stop window. It is a 1-driver race. All these drivers are the only people in the car, so they've got to last 2 hours in full. So let's hope they've got their water ready to go. Like snacks. I know some people like to snack when they're driving. I don't know why, because you think if you imagine it, you've got crisps, you're just not munching away. You're gonna get crumbs everywhere, but that's what some drivers do. But yes, those are the rules. Other than that, keep it clean, get to the finish, get points, job done, go to the bar, that's what you want. So, drivers just about over halfway through their warm-up lap. Rolling start, of course, in as it is with all GT racing. See Mr. Vyrek just getting a last bit of heat into his tyres. Soon they'll have to line up 2 by 2 before they reach the final corner. They'd use the extended start line for the start of the race. They'll go all the way down until about just the end of the pit exit before the race starts. Not going to use the short one and catch out all the GT4s who will spin off in into the dirt, because that's just not fair game. So here they are now, making their way 2 by 2, as I said. Just hoping to get the start of the race done as cleanly as possible. 2 hours long. I don't expect too much banditry in the first, famous last words, but in the first couple of laps. Of course, there will be probably the standard amount of contact, but hopefully we could try and avoid that as much as possible. So coming round the final corner for the first time under warm-up lap conditions, make our way to the line, and soon round 5 here of the CSM ACC Championship will be underway.
Green light, go, go, go.
And with that, its lights are out, and away we go for round 5 here at the Nürburgring of the CSM ACC Championship. Mr. Kevin Manning has a drive-through penalty already. I'm assuming he jumped the start. Not going well for Kevin as we make our way down to turn 1. The drivers keeping it nice and clean. Not too much going on so far, giving each other loads of room as they make their way down. Seems to have gone very cleanly. A couple of GT4s running wide towards the end, but as we jump our way back to the front, Wilhelm just managed to pull a slight gap to Rantzala, who's being hounded by Willemot and Olivier. Olivier just trying round the outside of Grant Willemot. All bit of door banging, pushes Olivier wide, just leave the room to come back on, still side by side. This does in fact mean that Chris Corbin is in on the act as well. He'll always try and sniff an opportunity. Olivier just trying to hook the round the inside, but then has the outside for the next set of turns. Chris Corbin still there behind, Willemot giving the space to Olivier. But Mr. Corbin is not one to be seen lightly. Just running a little bit wide there. In fact, there is still the drive-through for Kevin Manning, hasn't been rescinded, so it must have been a proper jump start as the timing board sorts itself out for the first time. Oh, a little bit of contact there between Willemot and Olivier again. I know there are other people in this field, but this is amazing racing so far on the first lap. Just trying around the outside. In fact, you've still got Jamal Padu just behind in his Mercedes as they come flying through. Oh, was that the Bentley of Stjangl Branson just running a little wide there? I think it was, but he's left enough room, it seems. So just to the GT4s, just jumping back. Damieo has managed to overturn Song Ki Bi for first place in the GT4s. And Kevin Manning managed to overtake Mr. Van der Volk as well. Joel Van der Volk not going so well. In fact, Siobhan Codrington there seemed to be lining up a move on Dixon Hurst. He'll have the toe coming into the chicane, but not a wise place to make a move when you've got a nice braking zone in the first and last corners. Just taking all of the curb and then running back. John Petchier, in fact, has managed to drop down to the back of the field. So from mid GT4, he's managed to drop his way back, obviously coming into contact, finding himself an incident. But around the GT4s and GT3s, made it through with no incidents thus far. A good first lap there for everyone. No obvious pains and thrills. Well, there have been thrills, but no pains thus far. Mr. Fire scampering his way off. He's got Rantala in tow. Then comes through Grant Willimont, Olivier, and Chris Corbin. In fact, all of the GT3s making their way through. Oisin Wilson, 7th place in the GTR, followed by Brian Mandeville. Florian here as well. And we've got all the rest of the field coming through. Still nice and tightly packed, which is quite surprising, actually, I must admit. This is a 2-hour race. If it stays like this for the whole 2 hours, I wouldn't know what to say, because I'd be out of breath. I'm out of breath already. Look at the paint scheme on that Mercedes. That is gorgeous. I hope that's not glitching. That is a very colourful paint scheme for Omar Badou there. So he comes up behind Jangle Branson. But we're going to jump back to Olivier, Willimont and Corbin. They are the nice close trio on track, putting in a good show for us already. Willimont and Feirik and Rantala have checked out already. Now making their way down under the trees. The Bentley of Corbin just seems to be catching up slightly to the Aston, while the BMW pulls away, showing the speed differences of the cars early on. Where the cars will be stronger, the Aston just catching up slightly on the brakes. Have the run down into turn 1 for the third time. Sorry, second time. Yes, third time. 2 laps completed. See if either are close enough to make a move. It doesn't look like it, but the number 33 of Ryan Quinn and James Dill are close together on track. Ryan just having a look up the inside of the McLaren, just showing his nose. Brakes heavily late. Porsche incredibly good on the brakes here. McLaren not also good on the brakes, not quite as good as the Porsche. Thought about the cut back there, James Dill. You could tell, just thought about it, but thought better of it this time round. Ryan, good. Oh, that was James Dill getting all sorts out of shape. Has he managed to keep? No, he's just hit into the wall. It looked like James Dill just got on the AstroTurf on the outside, and then just has a passenger from there on in. That car looks a little beaten up, if I say so myself. But that could be a good excuse to get one of these pit stops out of the way. If you pit this early, I mean, the tyres will last an hour as it is. No questions asked. So maybe an early pit stop for James Dill is in order to completely change up the strategy. But as we look back, Sonky B has checked out the GT4 field. Looks like there's been some sort of incident. There we go. That would explain it. Damieo has dropped back. It looks like he was down in 4th place at one point in the GT4s. Now he's got everyone for company, managed to get himself up to 2nd place still. Kevin Manning still gets a surface drive-through. Yeah, this will be his last opportunity to do so this lap. Before jumping the start. No obvious moves being made, just looking slightly further back. Dixonhurst as well, towards just at the back of this small train. Making their way through. And at the rear of the... In fact, Derek Rudder's managed to make up 4 places so far. Oh no, the timing screen has lied to me. He's made up 3 places so far. Good showing from Derek Rudder to just pick his way through so far in his Mercedes AMG. Sean McBride getting very late on the brakes there, Sean. You've got to calm it down a little bit. 2 hours left of the race, son. It has allowed John Petchier just to have a sniff at Sean with the Camaro. He'll have the superior top-end speed coming down into the chicane. Be able to see if he perhaps just tuck in going into turn 1. Nice and early on the brakes, takes it a little bit cleaner than Sean. Sean running just a smidge wide. Hard on the brakes. Petchier right under the rear wing of the Porsche Cayman. In fact, not getting such a good exit was John Petchier there. Managed to pull away. Kevin Manning pulled off into the pits to serve his drive-through, and I believe James Dill has gone into the pits, as has Sonky B gone for a very early pit stop, leading from the front of the GT4s. Interesting choice there. Oh, Sean running very wide yet again. Mr. Petchia doing all sorts. He's trying everything he can to try and get around Sean. Just going to the outside through the Mercedes arena is not always the best thing because you've got a bunch of left-hand corners. And yeah, you can see the Camaro suffering slightly with some understeer there. A much more agile Porsche Cayman living up to its expectation there. Just jumping a bit further forward, there is still the fight ongoing between Javon Codrington, Dixon Hurst and Malik Martin. The three nice and tight together on track. So that was in fact Joel Vandervoort making a move on Malik Martin, just down the inside. Good move from Joel. Oh, nice little bit of oversteer there from Malik Martin. Well held, son. McLaren GT4 a bit lively on power, as Malik is proving. A little bit of understeer there too, just carrying a bit too much speed through, which he wasn't prepared for. Managed to subdue it nicely. Let's jump up to the number 19, Dominic Olivier, who is still hounding Grant Willamot for the final podium spot. Chris Corbin also not too far behind. These three seem to be in a bit of a battle on their own for the minute, as Virak and Rantala are still leading out front. I'm sure Olivier will probably be thinking, let's not make too many moves. Don't want to slow each other down for the early parts of the race. Try and work together, increase your gap over those behind you as much as possible. In fact, there was a yellow flag in the last chicane. That was the number, I think it was the 254 of Malik Martin. And yes, it does seem to be that Malik did have a slight spin there, coming through the chicane. Perhaps just unsettled the car, spun it round. A bit unfortunate there for Martin, but with his pace so far, I'm sure he'll be back hounding the rest of the field in no time at all. But back to Olivier and Willamot. In fact, just starting to pull away even more from Chris Corbin. Olivier's subdued nature proving to be helping the cause of pulling away from Chris Corbin. But as soon as that gets to 2 seconds, I reckon Olivier's going to try and launch himself down the inside of Mr. Willamot. Crunching the curbs, all three of them. Has a little look, false look. You're not going to try and move there, not when you've got turn one to try and sort things out. But just trying to get Willamot's mirrors as much as possible. Look at the rear, towards the rear of the BMW. Heavy on the brakes from the Aston, just seems to close up a hell of a lot coming down into turn one. The Aston just superior on the brakes compared to the BMW. BMW does have very good traction coming out of the corners. So let's see how this battle unfolds. Looking further back there, very close on track do seem to be quadruple Brian Mandeville in the thick of it. He's got Ryan Quinn for company. Also just behind Oisin Wilson in his trusty GTR. A Bajan Cowboy. I've never seen a Bajan Cowboy in person, but I'm imagining a lot of Stetson and a lot of hat. I digress again. Well, I've got 2 hours to fill. Allow me this. Allow me just to waffle slightly, as there is another yellow. I think that's the 840 this time. Derek Rudder has found himself in the... Oh, that AMG looks very beaten up. In fact, he has stopped to the side. He's doing a burnout. I think he's stuck on some kind of invisible wall. Trusty gameplay doing well. Either that or the brakes have managed to stick on somehow, but that's not good for Derek Rudder at all. It's going to be a pesky yellow flag there. He managed to just digging himself out. There's obviously some invisible wall there. The game is used. Unfortunate for Derek there, but he's managed to get himself going. Perhaps an early trip into the pit stop, just like James Dill. That's it. Stay out of the way. Jamal Perdue coming through. Who knew it was a rallycross car? But as is, just coming up behind Mr. Ryan Quinn, right on the back of Brian Mandeville, coming into the final corner. Just a look forward here there as well in the Lexus. Keep it nice and tight. Now the Porsche not the quickest in a straight line, especially compared to the Merc, but with the help of the toe and some very good brakes, he might be able to make a move down into turn one. But he's also got here closing in fast. The Lexus much quicker in a straight line than the Porsche. Look at the gap he managed to close there. But look at that. Had to defend slightly, perhaps also just thinking give Derek Rudder as much room as possible. That was good there from Ryan Quinn, dispatching Rudder quickly and efficiently. I get the impression here he's a bit impatient behind. He's getting very close to the rear end of that Porsche. And we'll be looking to get past as quickly as possible and try and hunt down Mr. Vanderville. What a very dramatic opening to round 5 here at the Nürburgring of the CSM Championship. I do hope you've enjoyed the opening. I certainly have. I've not been able to stop talking. There's been so much going on. Of course, it is just myself here in the commentary booth as well, and that's saying, for me, that's good going. But just looking further through the field, they're still together on track. There's Mr. Grant Willemot and Olivier just pulled even further away from Chris Corbin. Ooh, Willemot running a little bit wide there, giving the advantage to Olivier coming down into the chicane. Whether Olivier will be able to make a move in this Aston, good on the brakes, but perhaps not the ideal corner to try and throw it up the inside. Gets it right though, he's a lot quicker through there than Willemot, closing up even further, having a look to the inside. Not quite close enough to try anything, but with a good exit. Ooh, Malik Martin finds himself round in the McLaren, just getting in the way of Willemot, giving the advantage to Olivier coming down the outside of the BMW. If he could just perhaps get in front, switch to the inside, but he's leaving Willemot the room. Chris Corbin coming in on the action in the rear as well. Willemot sticking to the inside, hoping to get to the apex as quickly as possible. Leaves the room for Olivier. Well done, Willemot. But now Olivier's got the inside for the next set through the Mercedes arena. But manages to hold on. Willemot, get out of jail. Free card there. Good, sir. Malik Martin proving... sorry, not proving. Malik Martin just influencing proceedings here. Has allowed Chris Corbin back in on the axe. Falls perfectly into Chris Corbin's hands. Perhaps now he's back in the tow, he can just stay with these two for a little bit more. Olivier perhaps will be kicking himself if he didn't capitalise on that opportunity handed to him by Malik Martin. In fact, Grant just starting to pull away slightly again. So maybe Grant just have the pace, and it's only the tow keeping Olivier just behind him. In fact, a 15-second penalty for John Petchier, who we just see at the beginning of your screen there. I'm not too sure what that was for. Perhaps it was to do with the contact with, or the reason. Ooh, what happened there? Corbin, hold it, son, hold it. Don't take them out, don't take them out, don't take them. Oh, God, that is the longest accident I've ever seen. John Petchier seems to just... John Petchier just perhaps got on the grass. In fact, his car is absolutely ruined. That is going to be a teleportation to the pit. That car is going nowhere. He's going to have to teleport back to the pits there. But it looked like Grant either misjudged it, or Petchier got on the grass and just ended up just clipping. Well, got on the grass, pulled off. Willemot clipped him, sent Petchier into the wall, and he came flying back onto the track at a rate of knots. And Corbin had to take extensive evading action. Reactions there from Chris Corbin were outstanding, putting his rally driving technique to the test as well, holding it on the grass, fully broadside, coming back onto the track. But well held, Chris Corbin. He's only lost the one place as well, but more importantly, he's lost about 8 seconds to the fight ahead for 3rd place. Unfortunate there for Chris Corbin, nothing he could do about that. Did all he could to prevent having it much worse, as Petchier just has teleported to the pit lane. So Petchier, whether he will rejoin, we will see. I suspect he would, because anything could happen in the next an hour and 45 minutes. It is an endurance race. But we will just jump to the GT4 fight. There is the 570 and 999 Dixon Hurst. Siobhan Godrich are going through as we see the leaders of the GT3 field coming through. Oh, something I completely forgot to mention was that there is a 12 times day cycle multiplier with this race. Because why not? It's a bit of fun. So over this 2-hour race is taking place over 24 hours in game time. So all of these drivers are going to have absolutely ruined tyre pressures. It's impossible to say what they've gone for, whether you go high, because you think, oh, it's daytime, go high. Then in 5 minutes' time, it will be 4 degrees cooler. So the tyre pressures are all over the place. The track temperature started on 19 degrees. It's now down to 16. So just something you can't really account for. Something a little wild card thrown into the mix that is sort of joker lap, you know, just a bit of fun for this round. Simulating a 24-hour race in 2 hours just to keep the drivers on their toes. Something a little bit different here in the CSM ACC Championship, something other series don't always tend to do. Just spice things up a little bit, sprinklers on the track, that sort of thing. So that would probably be one of the reasons we've seen quite a few spins from the GT4s, obviously with their tyres are much harder to keep in the temperature window compared to the GT3s, so a couple of spins probably expected amongst the GT4s. Mr. Dixon Hurst in his BMW, just maintaining the gap to Javon Codrington, a little bit of the grass there, not going to help things with the tyres. As the night draws ever further in, the sunset, well, the sun just setting on the German countryside. The Aston Martin Olivier diving up the inside. Oh, Javon doesn't quite see him, sees him late, has to dive out of the way. Very determined move there from Olivier. And here comes Grant Willemot making his way through again. Codrington allowed to take his line. Willemot, he does leave out Willemot the room, in fact, but that has mean he's gone very wide. Dixon Hurst is going to have a little bit of a run here. Having a look to the inside, he's alongside as well. It's a very easy move for Dixon Hurst. Getting on the, I say that. Codrington incredibly late. How did Codrington manage to keep that? Dixon was alongside in his BMW. Braked what I thought was at the normal point, but then Javon Codrington said, no, 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 this is my corner. Went round the outside. Well held from Codrington. Good, maintaining the position. So yes, as there's perhaps tyre pressures favouring Codrington compared to Hurst there, managing to have all the grip at his disposal. But the battle for first place is hotting up. Santeri Rantala has managed to close the gap ever just slowly and slowly, lap upon lap, to Wilhelm Weyrich. Just seems to be a little bit of latency on this serve, but of course it is worldwide between these drivers. US servers with drivers all the way to East Asia in some cases, but Weyrich, of course, staple in the German sim racing community and in the racing community in general. This is his home track. Well, with Mr. Wilhelm Weyrich, it would be of Oscar Sandberg as well if he was here. Sadly, Sandberg's not here, so Weyrich is the sole representation of Turn 1 leadership this time around in this race. And when I say home track, of course, Wilhelm Weyrich is one of these mad lads that will throw you around in a Porsche, I think it's a GT3 RS, or a BMW, I think it's an M4. They'll take you around the Nürburgring. They are the Ring Taxi. So if you ever want to hit these guys up, go to, I think it's ringtaxi.de. And you'll be able to book a couple of hot laps as well as a couple of driving sessions around the Nürburgring. And these are the guys that will take you round. Now, some penalties have come in. One for Grant Willemot. He's earned himself a 5-second penalty. I'm wondering whether that's relating to the incident with John Petchier, who incidentally is still in the pits. I'm wondering whether Petchier either had a lot of damage, several minutes of damage, or he's decided just to see how things pan out. Perhaps he's going to sit out the rest of the race. And also a penalty for Ryan Quinn of 5 seconds. Unsure the cause of that, but he does have a little bit of damage to the front of that Porsche. He's the fight here. He was passed by 4 in here, it seems. The GT4 of Sean McBride just getting in the mix here as well. He's going to have to, sorry, not Sean McBride, that's Zinky B. It's all heating up as the GT4s just play a part in the GT3 field, just getting ever so slightly in the way. B, of course, just trying to keep out the way as much as possible, but having a big influence in the proceeding of things. And there was a meatball flag there for somebody in the GT3 field. A mechanical defect on the car. Ooh, Mandeville and here nearly coming together. Down at turn 1 here, just had to bail out the corner slightly as Mandeville just perhaps squeezed him slightly to the outside of the turn 1 there. But well avoided from here. Don't want too much contact in the first, well, at all during the race, but especially during the first half an hour. As they make their way down, Mandeville flashing the lights on Dixon Hurst. Dixon keeping to the inside, brakes early as well, lets them through. But now he's got to pay attention, of course, to Ryan Quinn behind, as well as Omar Badou. Mr. Quinn just going to the inside. Ooh, little wiggle there from Omar Badou as well, on the power very early. There's also Stan Gulbranson coming back in on the act after he had that moment. I believe it was at... I think it was turn 11 when we saw that moment earlier. But I digress. He's back in with a shot. Fighting from 12th up until 8th, and Ocean Wilson has made a small gap to Brian Mandeville, but is still within a shot if he makes one single mistake. These lads will be capitalising as quick as a flash. Branson making his way around the outside of Javon Codrington there. Oh, Brian Mandeville finds himself just got off track there, coming back on, rejoining rather hazardously, I must say. Perhaps got sucked in by the gravel. Coming out of turn 12. But Javon Codrington having an escapade across as well. Javon just misjudging his braking point there. Both seem to get away with that, but Mandeville's going to be kicking himself. He's a flash of the lights as well, letting Codrington know he's coming through. But that is a get out of jail free card for Ocean Wilson. And here as well, just been done by Ryan Quinn up the inside. The brakes of the Porsche favouring Quinn. Well, I say favouring, of course they're going to favour him, meaning he comes out triumphant. Now, you've got two very... Omar Badou really testing the brakes of his Mercedes there. Nearly going into the back of the Lexus. So we'll just ride on board with Omar Badou now. See how he gets on in trying to pass the Lexus of Florian here. Again, more back markers in the form of the GT4s. Joel Vandervolt now playing a part. Ryan Quinn, tasty little switch back there. Gets a good run out of the exit there. Joel, I wonder whether he'll back off and let Omar through. And has he seen him? He has seen him, leaves the gap. Oh, but Omar Badou running very wide onto the gravel. That's going to allow Stan Gulbranson through. Good move there for Stan. He manages to keep Vanderbilt behind as well. All these drivers, they don't get the definition of an endurance race. This is just a 2-hour sprint for them. But that was a very good move from Stan Gulbranson. Capitalised on the situation. Ooh, little sideways is there from Gulbranson, and Florian here making a mistake by going wide. This is spectacular racing. Has allowed Omar Badou back in the mix, and also Ryan Quinn to scarper away. Ryan Quinn's 5-second penalty. He's going to want to just check out as quickly as possible. Slight lift there from Badou, so I'm sensing all of these drivers are suffering with tyre pressures right now. The way they're skating about the track. Yeah, God, that Bentley looks very unhappy there. You can just see the attitude of this Mercedes and the Bentley. They're all lively at the rear, trying to rotate much more than the drivers would like and when they were during the day. The 24-hour time cycle just proving to be a good cause of drama in this race, some entertainment as we head into the Mercedes arena for the 14th time. In fact, Porsche looks like Gulbranson's really struggling with these tyres now, as is Badou just cutting to the inside. Managing to, seems, get the move done on Gulbranson. That's a very good move there for Badou. Gulbranson did run very wide. Badou thought, thank you very much, I'll have that. Branson's not going anywhere, still right under the rear wing of that Mercedes. This has been an enthralling battle so far. As we just approached the half-hour mark of the race, an hour and a half left to go. The source is glowing in the night. In fact, Badou just managing to pull away slightly from Gulbranson. Gulbranson, you can tell the attitude of that car, as I said, understeer, then hideous oversteer on exit. The pressures just seem to be all over the shop. Really, perhaps not suited to the nighttime driving. Meanwhile, Brian Mandeville is also starting to just close the gap ever so slightly. Oh, I'm blind, I can't see. There we go. Yeah, starting to close the gap. He's within 4 seconds now of Gulbranson. Mercedes sounding lovely as it makes its way down towards the end of the lap. Further ahead, we jump to first place, just check in with Weirich and Rantala. Rantala managed to close up about 4 tenths since we last saw. Of course, these two very experienced sim racers and real life, so mistakes from these two is unlikely. But Weirich just managed to pull out a further 2 tenths on Rantala through the first sectors. Going through the Schumacher S's. Lovely shot with the lights going there. Porsche singing at 8,000 RPM. On the brakes he goes, Rantala. This race is going to go down to the wire with these two. It's probably going to be made in the pit stops. Who can have the best stop will decide the race between these, I reckon. Just as I mentioned that, Mr. Brian Mandeville and James Dill have pulled into the pit lane. And John Petchy is still in there as well. Oh, Brian didn't quite make his pit box. Has to move slightly forward. That's going to be costly for Brian. And that was the McLaren of James Dill. Brian, I think, is struggling to find his... Has he gone to the wrong pit box? Brian, really, I think there must have been a slight glitch with the game there, because that has meant James Dill is potentially going to manage to jump Brian Mandeville in the pits here. Dill not having the trouble. Mandeville still... That is a shame for Brian Mandeville. I think the game is doing him dirty there. Really struggling with his pit stop. But we'll cut away from that. I think there was a yellow flag. The number 36 of... Number 36, Florian here found himself round. He was a yellow flag just coming out the Schumacher S's. Whether that was of his own making, he was involved in a battle. He was around Ryan Quinn, Omar Badu, and Jan Branson. It's difficult to tell in the night. Oh, spit of flame, yes! I love the Lexus. But whether that had anything to do with those around him, I'm not too sure. But Florian now getting on his bike again. But the battle was Jan Branson and Omar Badu still very much happening. Gap just increased ever so slightly. Oh, this is going to be toing and froing as well for the rest of the race. You see Brian leave the pits. Did manage to get his pit stop done. Interesting set of circumstances there for Mandeville. But Ryan Quinn has managed to pull out 9 seconds on Omar Badu. So while these two were fighting, Ryan has just ran away with it in his Porsche GT3. I think his pressures are much better suited to the night, it seems. He's also closing the back on Oisin Wilson. Number 86, Nissan GTR. Of course, he originally did run away with it slightly from Ryan to begin with. Ooh, Wilson, hold it! That's it. Again, Wilson perhaps struggling with the tyre pressures as well of that heavy Nissan GTR. That has allowed Brian to close the gap right up. Look at that, within 1.5 seconds now, it seems. Coming towards the end of the lap for the 17th time. Over half an hour gone now. In round 5 at the Nürburgring CSM Championship. Drivers in the pit lane as well. A couple of the GT4s have come in. Joel van der Volk, in fact, has just left. Dixon Hurst also in the pit lane, as well as Mr. Paul Rees has come into the pits. Sorry, but not. In fact, Paul Rees actually disconnected quite a while ago, which was unfortunate. Well, no, was it Paul Rees? Yes, it was Paul Rees in the McLaren GT3 unfortunately disconnected quite some time ago, which is sad to say. Mr. Pecci is still in the pit lane as well. But Florian here is coming into the pits as well, so yes, the driver's definitely deciding to get one of their pit stops out the way at this point in the race. Just as it gets into the night, switch to the tyres for the optimum nighttime temperatures. Hopefully see you out until perhaps half an hour left of the race when it's getting to about 8 AM. Switch to the daytime pressures once again. So here into the pit lane, no dramas there. Meanwhile, Dami Ayo is in the lead of the GT4s. He's got Sonki B about 20 seconds behind. We did see Sonki go into the pits very early on, but without serving a pit stop, so I'm wondering if they had to perhaps repair some damage or some fuel. But I don't think they changed tyres to complete their one of their mandatory pit stops. Miss B was well into the lead early on in this race. Dami Ayo now finds himself out in front by quite a margin. So I'm intrigued as to what went on with Sonki B's pit stop. But we'll be able to tell if they managed to make it back. With an hour and a half left of this race. Santeri Rantala has also come into the pit lane, the second place driver, or the first to blink out of the top 8. Of course, Olivier and Corbin have also pitted as well, but intriguing to see just how far Rantala is ahead of Olivier and Corbin. Of course, those two having an altercation with Grant Willemot. Branson and Badou also close together on track as we see Malik Martin just keeping out the way of Rantala. In fact, giving the Ferrari a run for his money through the Mercedes arena. Good going there, Malik. Keep him on his toes. And I believe just up ahead of Rantala, we can see just how far ahead they are across the timing line. But there is the number 33 of Ryan Quinn on track, as well as the 86 of Ocean Wilson. So Ryan has managed to close up the gap quite extensively to Mr. Wilson. Porsche versus Nissan GTR. Not a common sight in GT3 racing. Of course, the GTR most of the time spent its time in the Asian GT World Challenge, but decided to come over and try out the Carib Sim motorsport side of things. Good to see. As John van der Valk just keeps out of the way. Nothing too untoward amongst all of that. Just thinking about Ryan's time through the championship so far, was at, I don't believe he took part in, oh no, he did, my bad. He was one of the last cars at Snetterton. Of course, last time out at Snetterton it was a 20-minute sprint race followed by a 40-minute feature race, double header for round 4. Ryan, unfortunately, was last. That's the only really way to put it for the sprint race, but managed to turn it around and finish P13 for the feature race. But now finding himself in P5, this is a good turnaround for Ryan Quinn. The Nürburgring obviously shooting both him and the Porsche, as we see Mr. Wilhelm Weyrich just coming up to lap these two. Actually, I believe. So that's Rantala and Weyrich together on track again. We'll wait for the timing screen to update. That, I believe that is for position as well. So we've got 4 drivers fighting position, 2 sets of battles. You're going to be lucky to find a gap here, Weyrich. Ooh, chucking it down the side of his sister Porsche. Just a slight love tap there. Quinn managing to keep it on the road nicely though. Rantala around the outside. Quinn just running a little bit wide. Clip of the curb. Very aggressive move there from Wilhelm Weyrich, and now he's got to make his way past the GTR of Wilson. In fact, fact, I just realised all of these are for position technically, aren't they? Because the timing screen took forever to update. Got confused there. Yes, all of those were for position. Oh, Rantala finds himself round in the background there. Whether there was contact between him and Ryan Quinn, I'm not too sure, but Mr. Rantala just struggling to get the Ferrari going again. Watch out for the GT4 coming round. But I'm not quite sure what happened there for Rantala. That's not a great turn of events. He's now got Stjangl Branson up on his rear end now. 4th position as well. But that is allowed Wilhelm Weyrich just to run away in P1. Again, just getting away with that quite a lot, but that has also been Ocean Wilson and Ryan Quinn are back together as well, fighting for position. Obviously yet to make a pit stop, so their net position is not 3rd and 4th, but regardless, every position is worth fighting for. It could be later in the race, you never know. Rantala and any of these two could find themselves together on track. So fight every position you can, is my mantra. In fact, Brian Mandeville has completed all of his pit stops, so with that pit stop trouble earlier, I think Brian has just elected just to get them all out of the way, see the race through to the end. He's going to have a task on his hands, though, to try and make one set of tyres last an hour and 20 minutes with all of these pressure changes. Especially because if they're too low pressure, they'll start to grain. If they're too high, they'll start to blister. So I'm intrigued to see how Brian gets on for the rest of the race. One to watch out for. Completely out of position. And we'll only start to know if his plan has worked when the likes of Jamal Badou, Florian here start to complete their 2nd round of pit stops. An intriguing strategy from Brian Mandeville. Really interested to see how that pans out. As we have a couple more coming into the pits. Omar Badou being one of them, as well as that is the Aston Martin of Kevin Manning just up ahead. Looks like Omar's just getting himself going. So, track, we still have the number 33 of Ryan Quinn and Oisin Wilson, the closest pairing on track at the minute. Oh, Ryan Quinn, very... Oh, God, it's happened again. I've flicked to Ryan and he's crashed. Oh, Ryan, no, I'm sorry. Exactly the same thing happened at Bathurst. Flicked to him, and he kept it out of the wall this time, though, which is good going. Ryan electing to go into the pit lane. So, I dare say the lack of tyre temperatures or pressure in the tyres a factor there in Ryan's spin. Hot onto the brakes. Perhaps a little later than Wilson. Wilson maybe braked a little earlier. Caught Quinn out. Car snaps in standard Porsche fashion. Around it went. And the rest is history. Kept it out the wall though. Good job, Ryan. Hopefully we can see you climb back up the order a bit later in the race. So, Grant Willemot is currently leading in his BMW M6. Still yet, of course, to make a pit stop. The Turn 1 Pro driver, Turn 1 CSM driver, I should say. So is that just coming up on the back of Damieo, it seems. Breeze past that with no problem at all. So Grant Willemot did win the double header last time out at Snetterton. Grant is a very accomplished driver in the ACC world, both in CSM and a couple of other championships around the place. But it'll be interesting to see. This might not be Willemot's race this time round, with Weyrich already making his pit stop and was a good 10 seconds ahead before that. But Grant loves a challenge. You can never count him out, especially as we've seen so far, the likes of Rantala spinning round in these changeable conditions and very interesting pressures as a result. Tyre wear's a factor. Anything can happen. And that does in fact mean that Grant Willemot is leading the CSM Championship so far. currently finds himself. I believe last time I checked, I think he broke the 100-point barrier. Find that out for you and get back to you. Chris Corbin is another driver who is fairly high up in the championship as it stands. He has completed one of his pit stops so far. So he is probably about net 5th on the road. Once Wilson or Branson have made their stops. And as you see Corbin jump up a couple of places. Yeah, Corbin last time out, suggested second in the sprint race and also second in the feature race. I always ask Chris the question at the end of the race: do you think you could? Because he always finds himself just off the top step. The exception being Zandvoort round 1, where he did manage to win these chaotic sprint race. But he always just finds himself just at the heels of those on the top step, and just always perhaps even just the one tiny mistake, or just lacking that extra tenth round a lap. Just proving again last time out at round 4. Corbin still just needs to find that extra bit of something in his driving, but he's still a very, very capable driver. I'm not taking anything away from him. He is very good behind the wheel, both on track and around a rally stage. I know it was currently in the Carib Rally Club 2021 Championship. Dab hand at all sorts of motorsport, it seems. So as I mentioned, the Carib Rally Championship, I'll take this time just to do some plugging, because that's the only way you can get things done these days in the online world. Of course, this is the Carib Sim Motorsport ACC Championship. Carib Sim Motorsport does have its own Discord channel. We have our own YouTube channel, which you're watching this on. Please do like and subscribe. Hit the bell icon. You'll get notified whenever we go live and all future videos, whatever they may be. Highlight videos of rallying, highlight videos of the ACC. Whatever we take our fancy, really. But yeah, do make sure to subscribe and like the video if you are enjoying it. There's still an hour and 15 left, so yeah, the Caribbean Sim Motorsport Discord group is open to all, catering for all abilities. This is, of course, we're not elitist in any way. We don't have the numbers for splits yet. As you can tell, this is very much a multi-skill event. But if more of you join, if more of you just want to get involved, we have people joining, of course, every day. Newcomers, new faces. With more of you joining, we can get multi-splits going, perhaps even have multi-streams. And of course, with more people joined, the quality only ever improves. So that's Caribbean Sim Motorsport with the Carib Rally Club as well. It's not just ACC, Dirt Rally 2 Championship going with some very big names in. Currently being led by our good friend Dominic Linton. Hello Dom, if you're watching. I know you're winning, you're trying hard, you best bloody well win the rest of it. Yes, as well as catering for some AMS2 games, we have a couple of servers occasionally popping up around the place. And race room and standard assetting Corsa as well. So it really caters for all of your racing needs. So yeah, if you're interested, do a join. So with that bit of plugging done, let's get back to the race. Grant Willimot has found he's got pulled into the pits. In fact, he is just leaving. He was the leader of the race. Be interested to see where Grant comes out. I think he has just managed to come out in front of Chris Corbin. Yeah, the number 45 of Chris Corbin just going into the first corner, quickly followed by Stan Gulbranson. So he's managed to overturn Gulbranson on the road. No need for a pit stop yet. Gulbranson still yet to make his pit stop, perhaps waiting until the hour mark. It's interesting to see how the different strategies play out throughout the race. That has meant Wilhelm Weyrich has retaken the lead of this race. So Terry Rantala a good 15 seconds behind after his incident. Not sure whether it was made by himself or by full position with Ryan Quinn. But either way, Olivier is only 3.5 seconds behind Rantala. So after these pit stops, Olivier has managed to close the gap quite extensively to Rantala. Over the next couple of laps, it'll be very interesting to see if he can close it even further. And looking further back, currently in 4th place, Oisin Wilson in the Nissan GTR. The highest placed driver yet to make a pit stop. See if he decides to go in this time around. Grant Willemot closing in behind rather quickly as well. Aussie Willow Motorsports. Coming round in the final corner for the 25th time. Sorry, 24th time. And as I said, Grant Willemot closing very quickly on Wilson. These pit stops overlapping, different tyres, different wear levels, different fuel levels as well. Wilson's car is going to be much lighter than Grant Willemot's. And then Grant is going to have so much nicer tyres and suited for the temperatures as well. Ooh, little wiggle there from Grant as well. But you can tell he's pushing. He wants to close the gap as much as possible and try and get back with Olivier. So I'm wondering whether Grant and Olivier found themselves, before the pit stop started happening, they were on track together. So I'm wondering whether Willemot either trouble in the pit stop or perhaps getting back past some back markers. It's just fell away slightly. But as he bears down on the GTR, Oisin Wilson, we can see just how it gets on. Where do you think he'll make the move? I suspect it would be once he's through the Schumacher S's. If he's close enough, he's already flashing the lights, letting him know he's coming through. Of course, Wilson's going to fight this reasonably hard, I suspect, because everything is for position. Just coming up to through turn 11, turn 12. Willemot can just focus on the exit. Find the move up. Coming into the final chicane. He's got a good run, pulling to the right-hand side. And he gets the move done before the turn even happens. What good move there from Grant Willemot. Very nicely done. Wilson still persevering with these set of tyres. And with that, Willemot goes up into 4th place. Well, further 7 seconds back, Chris Corbin is coming around the final corner. Further back, 7th place, Jan Gulbrandsen also yet to make a pit stop. But we saw Jan really struggling with the tyres about 15 minutes ago. So I dread to think with the night down to 10 degrees track temperature, he's going to be struggling even more with those tyres. Really hurting him, I imagine. And then a lap further, 14 seconds further behind, Jamal Perdue in his Mercedes. Currently the highest placed Mercedes on track. Omar is, of course, has already made a pit stop. So when Wilson makes his, I dare say we'll find these two pretty close together on track. Gulbrandsen, I have a feeling, will probably drop down to Omar Perdue level. They'll probably find themselves on track once again. So back to Ryan Quinn coming across the start line. He's got some GT4s for company, as well as Florian here just behind as well. 6 tenths between them. Here has managed to find a catch up to Ryan Quinn quite extensively there, fighting for P9. We've just got Joel Vandervolk in the mix as well, making their way through the Mercedes arena. Vandervolk keeping left. Florian is probably going to dive to the inside if he leaves the room, which he will, but Vandervolk not in a good place. Oh, Florian, keep it together. She does. Well gathered, well gathered. Just a wiggle there from Florian here, getting on the power on the marbles, it looked like. But well held. Lost, looks like maybe about a second to Ryan Quinn. Not the end of the world. Can make it back. But he's not going to want too many more of those type of hair-raising moments. Don't want to push it too much, find yourself in the wall or in the gravel. That could be race ending. further back to 11th place, Omar Badu. Someone's just got a paintbrush and thrown paint at the car, it seems. Very interesting paint scheme. As we see it go past Damiao, still in first place, the GT4s. But yet to make a pit stop, and it's not surprising. Interesting to see when AO decides to pit. And then, I suppose Omar Badu was also yet to make a pit stop, rather interestingly, compared to James Dill, who is not too far behind. Probably about 15 seconds once the timing screens update. Maybe more like 20. James Dill, we did see have an off slightly earlier, very early on in the race, managed to keep it together. Going to have an off, do it right at the start. And then it met the wall, pitted very early for that single pit stop, repaired the car, changed tyres. Ooh, as he just... Ooh, James. Keep it, there we go. As James Dill, obviously is perhaps struggling with the tyre pressures as well, it's the middle of the night. Yeah, he made his pit stop within the first 4 or 5 laps to repair a hideous amount of damage to the front end of that McLaren. He's back out. And then bringing up the rear of the GT3 field, we've got Mr. Brian Mandeville, who has made all of his pit stops, but then did also have some trouble in the pit lane. Perhaps the pit box just wasn't quite registering. Decided to then get all his pit stops out of the way nice and early. So now for him it's just a sprint to the finish. But you can see the right side of that car is all sorts of scuffed up. You get a nice shot here. Yeah, he's obviously perhaps had a graze with the wall or another car. Not the best excursion so far for Brian Mandeville, but with over an hour left, anything can happen, as the famous song goes. And this is Dominic Olivier just coming up to lap the pair of Mandeville and Godrington. Don't try anything silly now, Olivier. Pick your moment. Oh, 3 wide down the back straight. That's risky for when there's already over an hour left, but very entertaining nonetheless. Oh, in fact, Damiao has just gone into the pit lane. There he is. So the leader of the GT4s has gone into the pit lane. Second place, Song Ki B, is just going through the final chicane. So Damiao is going to hold on to his first place after the first round of pit stops has transpired for the GT4s. But as Damiao's tyres are going to be freezing cold, so B will probably be able to close the gap quite extensively over the next 2 or 3 laps as they just make way for Wilhelm Weyrich, still in first place, coming through in the bigger brother Porsche. Then in third place, the GT4s, Joel van der Valk, not too far behind B. Just under 8 seconds in his Aston Martin. Making his way through the Mercedes arena. Then 22 seconds back, Siobhan Codrington, who we just earlier saw being lapped by Dominic Olivier. He's now got Grant Willemot behind him. Blue flags waving. Of course, the GT4s don't have to move out the way of the GT3s. They're allowed to hold their line. As he did run wide there, let Willemot through. Yeah, the GT4s don't have to move out the way. They can just hold their line and just be nice and predictable is the way to describe how a GT4 should behave with a GT3 behind. Do what you'd normally do and let the GT3 overtake you. They're the faster car. They're not going to hold you up for a large proportion of the lap. So it's the GT3's job to get past the GT4. Of course, if the GT4 does start to defend, it's A, pointless, B, a bit rude. It's not cricket. It's not sportsmanlike. But there's nothing to prevent the GT4 from defending. It just seems a bit pointless. So yeah, GT3, just lunge GT4, get it done, bish bash bosh, move on. So then in 18th place, Dixon Hurst is currently getting overtaken by Jamal Badu. I do love the multi-class nature of these races. It's a big appeal for GT racing, is the multi-class nature, compared to Formula racing, where of course you're kind of not allowed to have multi-class aspects due to the open wheel nature of the cars, safety aspect. But having two different speeds of car on track, or if you're in WEC or the various Le Mans series around the world, the big drawing factor is that it's always got to be paying attention. Drama could happen at any point with the amount of lapping and unlapping that goes on throughout the race. And it's just a big appeal for people around the world, and the drivers especially, because it means you've got to concentrate for the whole race. You're constantly looking in your mirrors if you're a GT4. Just be nice and predictable, as I mentioned earlier. And if the GT3, you've always got to keep your wits about you, because you don't know what the GT4 might be planning to be doing, I should say. So it's just a very interesting dynamic to racing. I absolutely love it. So yeah, Dixon, 18th. 19th, Sean McBride. As we see Mr. Virek come through again. Sparks flying out the rear of that Porsche. In the chromatic Porsche GT4 we see here, Mr. McBride. Currently sitting in 19th place overall. And 6th place in the GT4s. Quite a distance off of Dixon Hurst in the BMW. Of course, all of the GT4s have completed one of their pit stops. So this is the way it will be for a reasonable period of the race to come. Then 20th place, Kevin Manning, the 165 Aston Martin GT4. Kevin hasn't had too much feature time thus far in the race. We did see him quite early on when he was, I think, fighting with Hurst and it was Malik Martin towards the beginning of the race. Now, as we approach the halfway mark, finds himself down in 20th. And then moving on into... Ooh, Kevin. Took a little bit too much curb on the first part of that chicane, unsettled the car, just started to send it round. Well gathered though from Kevin Manning. Not too much drama there, just a little bit of a scare. In fact, there was a yellow flag there for someone, and they've vanished. I don't know if you saw that at home. There's a yellow flag, and there's now only 21 cars in the race. I'm not sure quite what happened there. I'll endeavour to find out if I can over the next couple of minutes.
We are at the halfway mark. Keep pushing.
Well, as our race engineers just said, half an hour in, 12 hours into a 2-hour race. Yes, that actually makes sense. Yeah, Derek Rudder, 20th. Derek had a good run at the start of the race, managed to climb back 3 or 4 places. Now finds himself back down in 20th. Quite a way off of Kevin Manning. And the same goes for Malik Martin as well. Malik had a great run, found himself fighting for the back of the train for the podium places, but then had a couple of incidents, perhaps influenced by GT3s, not too sure. John Pettier as well found himself with a penalty early on before he retired. And Martin was also round, perhaps as a result. Unfortunately, we did miss that. But Mr. Martin, of course, will endeavour to try and get hot on the heels of the rest of them. As I keep saying, there is an hour left. It's the usual. An hour is the usual length of these CSM races, so anything can happen. So the earlier on-track battle of Florian here and Ryan Quinn just seems to have spread out quite a bit. That is the Porsche of Wilhelm Weyrich in front, not of Ryan Quinn, just so you know. There's about just over 4 seconds between Quinn and here now. There was 6/10 the last time we saw these two. So here perhaps just running into some trouble, or perhaps has some slightly lower tyre pressures. Perhaps he's banking on it's starting to warm up soon, which it is. It has increased a degree in track temps since midnight. Just again, interesting to see how this develops with the extended time multiplier. As I mentioned before, 24-hour time multiplier over this 2 hours, just to spice things up, really. You know, just keep it, keep it fresh, keep it moving. So Omar Badou, the only driver still running, yet to complete a single pit stop. Well, one that was registered by the game anyway. So an interesting tactic there from Omar Badou. Not been the best of races for him so far, but he was a lot higher earlier in the race, fighting with the likes of Ryan Quinn in 7th earlier on. Now finds himself over just 30 seconds behind Gulbranson in 10th. So I'm wondering whether Badou perhaps maybe did serve a pit stop and wasn't registered, or has just had a series of unfortunate events thrust upon him. As he's now just got Brian Mandeville behind him, the only GT3 behind him, who has completed all of his pit stops. So, not the best showing for Omar Badou, but then Mandeville is a lap pretty much behind. Brian Mandeville is just gone over the start-finish straight, approaching turn 1, and Omar Badou is just rounding the final corner. So, with a 30-second pit stop to change tyres, and then you've got to include a very long pit lane here at the Nürburgring. Just say it'll probably take, maybe lose about 15-20 seconds going through the pit lane, if not more. I dare say Mandeville, once Badou's completed all of his stops, I dare say Mandeville will come out in front of Omar Badou, and perhaps even consider a move on Gulbranson as well. Assuming Mandeville's tyres are up to the challenge. He did pit so early, his tyres are going to be spent by the end of the race, probably. Especially if they're perfected for nighttime running, where lower temperatures means you need higher pressures to get into the optimum bandwidth, about 27.3 to 27.8 psi with the GT3s. So as the temperatures start to rise, his tyre pressures will start to rise as well, and then just start to wear unevenly, start to blister as well, perhaps, if the temperature increases by quite a lot. And with the heavy nose of the AMG, the fronts start to wear quite considerably compared to the rears, so expect quite a bit of understeer for all of the front engine cars, but especially that Mercedes of Mandeville. Of course, there are no tyre compounds or as such in GT racing. Everyone has the same dry tyre. It's a Pirelli, I believe. Yeah, the Pirellis all got the same tyre, dries and wets. Of course, it's not wet, so no one's going to be using the wet tyre, but there you go. There's choices you have. And, here in the CSM Championship, you have 12 sets to last you the entire weekend. So, start of practice, quali, and the race, you have 12 sets. So, enough to see the race through with no real issues. But if you go through an extensive amount of tyres in practice, that's where it starts to come back and bite you a bit later on. In fact, as I was talking about Omar Badou earlier, he's found himself coming into the pits. So with 54 minutes left of the race, he makes his first pit stop. So he won't lose a position to Brian this time around, but perhaps will the next pit stop. He has a bit of a slow entry there. I'm wondering if he didn't quite set the fuel, so I was waiting to jack the fuel all the way up and then could do the stop. As Mr. Vyrick makes his way past, still in first place. It was about 20 seconds ahead of Santeri Rantala. In fact, we will just ride on board with Vyrick. He can take us on a lap of the nighttime running here at the Nürburgring GP circuit. let's use the luxury of the helmet cap. Get all of the motion sickness out of your system. Tell the way Virak is pushing, even over an hour into this race, he's still giving it everything. The attitude of that car, just getting on the power, a slight slip of the rears, having to catch it when they exit the previous corner. This man wants a very demanding win. I think he knows that Rantala is still very much a threat as we get on into the later parts of this race. Brakes coming up on the back marker. I believe that might be Joel van der Volk in the Aston Martin. Actually, no, it's 999 of Javon Godrington. Give a flash of the lights, let knows where it's coming through. Of course, there are no rules against the amount of times you can flash in this series. It's just gentlemanly not to just blind your opponent in front. You can see the downforce difference between the GT3s and the GT4s there. There's the gap. Virak managed to close up under the brakes and through the corner on Godrington there. It was impressive to say the least. Almost running into the back of Godrington there, but managed to stay out the back of him. Good lap there from Wilhelm Virak to see how he's getting on. As he now makes his way through the Mercedes arena on lap number 36 of this round 5 at Nürburgring. So, Florian here has just come into the pit lane. Pitting from 8th place as he brings the car to a stop. He was having a good ding-dong with Ryan Quinn earlier in the race. Once Ryan has also completed his pit stop, interested to see where these two come out. Of course, there's not too many on-track battles happening right now. Before Florian bailed into the pit lane, it was him and Wilson that were the closest on track. Wilson now just about to be lapped by Santeri Rantala, who runs a little wide there, coming through turn 5. So Florian is the second driver to complete all of the pit stops. Oh, in fact, Brian Mandeville has managed to overturn Omar Badu with that pit stop. Turns out that the gap due to pit stops is a lot larger than I did think. Good showing for Brian Mandeville. He's managed to bring himself up into 11th place, but we're sticking with Wilson now just to see how Rantala manages to dispatch Wilson. Rantala firmly a lap up, no pit stops involved here, having both completed one so far. And just see how Rantala gets on. Getting past Wilson. In fact, Omar Badu is only 0.8 behind Brian Mandeville. He's 77 and 24, finding himself on track together. We will cut to... that is not... There we go. Omar just started getting a little bit late on the brakes there. The two Mercedes finding themselves together on track. Good to see some on-track action for the first time in a couple of laps. Ooh, Omar, hold it together, sir. There you go. The curves proving very, very traumatic for a lot of these drivers in the night. Just proving you just need to steer clear of them as much as possible. Brian's car seems a lot more neutral compared to Omar's. With a, But Badu, there you go, it's alliteration, will have the much fresher tyres compared to Mandeville. In fact, I've just realised it was Mr. James Dill who disconnected earlier, who I mentioned we were a man down. James Dill, I think, had a yellow and then disconnected. Whether they were connected, wheel trouble, I'm not too sure. Anything in the Discord to tell me of it? Nope. Badou is definitely the faster out of these two. Tokyo drift much better there, Omar. Well held, but you're not going to get past him taking up the whole track. Brian Mandeville's not going to be complaining about that. He knows that Badou is yet to make another pit stop, so the less Mandeville has to fight, the better, because it will help save his tyres for the later part of the race. Because if Badou manages to go past and pull out maybe a second a lap, and then pit on the last lap, these two might find themselves on track together once again. Just coming through turns 11 and 12. In fact, John Codrington has just gone to the pit lane. The 4th place GT4 driver. It's been confused with team 4th place. Humble plug there. But yeah, even the straight line speed, obviously they are in the tow, but Badou just seem to have the legs on Brian. I'm wondering whether he didn't fuel the car up completely because he knows he's got to make another pit stop. He can choose when to take it. Here we go, down into turn 1. Mandeville being closed down just 10th upon 10th by Omar Badou. Omar Badou having a look, but nope, thinks better of it. A bit too far away to make a move. You can see the wider line. He's focusing on the exit, cuts to the left as much as possible. You can see how much more front-end grip Omar Badou has there. He can just get it turned in so much more. Bit of a wiggle there from Badou as well. I dare say this might be the lap that Badou gets the overtake done again. A little wiggle again from Badou. He's got to be careful, especially when he makes the move on Mandeville. It's inevitable at this point. It's a question of when, really, assuming Badou doesn't completely bin it. But you can tell, coming off the brakes, he is struggling. The car just wants to rotate a little bit from the rear, and he gets on the power as well. But good run here from Badou. He'll look to the inside, I'm sure. Whether he'll make the move, not quite close enough. In fact, no, he bails out slightly early. Decides against it. Oh, that's the reason why Dixon Hurst in the BMW just getting lapped there. Oh, this is a chance for Badou. Maybe a flash of the lights. Mandeville knows he's there. Defends very early. Mandeville just managing to hold the inside. Badou backs out slightly. Of course, it's Florian here coming up to lap them as well. This is a very good battle for 11th place. Of course, every point counts in the championship. Get as many positions as you can. But I'm surprised Badou hasn't managed to get this move yet. You can just tell every single corner how much more grip Badou has than Mandeville. But Mandeville's got to make these tyres last to the end of the race. And he's just coming up to about halfway through the stint as well. So any sort of fighting is just only ever going to hinder Mandeville, but then also Badou, because if Badou's got to make another pit stop, he wants to get this move done as quickly as possible, preserve his tyres, and go make them last even further into the race. So when he gets his second pit stop done, he doesn't fall back behind Mandeville. But Mandeville knows this and is defending incredibly well. A bit of a look to the outside there from Badou. Another flash of the lights, but Mandeville holds his line very nicely. Badou will try and get the cut back. Mandeville running slightly wide, using track limits to his advantage there, but now he's got to defend coming into turn 5. Badou round the outside, carries it, but he's on the marbles, can't quite make it stick, and now he's going to have to just... Florian here for just taking a slight dance into the gravel there, but he is still in 10th place, so no major harm done. Florian here also to complete a pit stop is a lap ahead of Brian Mandeville. So here could actually be fighting for position with Omar Badou once this is all over. So Badou is not going to give away that lap position easily. He's not going to defend it, but he's not going to make it easy for Florian here. But we will stick with the ongoing battle between Badou and Mandeville. I wonder whether this strategy for Mandeville, if he can keep it together and have no more incidents in the rest of the race, might just work wonders. I realised what I said earlier was complete rubbish, because here is in front of Badou, but yeah, disregard what I said earlier about Badou and here being together on track later, because that's not true. I got them the wrong way around. But this is still the closest on-track battle, but oh, actually, I tell a lie. Because Santeri Rantala at some point seems to have had an incident and has managed to drop behind Dominic Olivier and Grant Willemot while all that was going on. That's Ocean Wilson, who's got for company, turns his lights off. Of course, daytime has come upon us, 7:17 AM. 18 hours into this, well, not quite 18, 16, 15 hours into this 2-hour race. Again, that doesn't really make sense to me, but there. Because Rantala was in second place. He was about 20 seconds behind Wilhelm Warwick last time we checked in with him. But has fallen behind Olivier and Willemot without completing a pit stop. So either perhaps just a back marker or just with a spin. But Olivier and Willemot have managed to jump up position. So Rantala out of the podium spots. Very unfortunate for him. But this is the sort of thing Olivier loves to capitalise on. Not without his dramas throughout the races. Of course, he's been taken out a couple of times by GT4s, GT3s, and just been a sort of hapless bystander in a lot of those incidents. But Olivier having a much cleaner run so far, even managing to avoid the incidents with John Petchier and Grant Willemot, which caused Chris Corbin to break out some rally skills as well. But even dispatching all of these GT4s and lap GT3s, he's done it flawlessly so far. Currently second place. Quite a good chunk of time behind Wilhelm Warwick, who's just going through the Schumacher S's. Olivier just coming out the exit of turn 6. Coming onto the back of Derek Rudder, who's in 19th place. Yet to complete all of his pit stops. He has Kevin Manning and Malik Martin behind him. Derek Rudder only 10 seconds behind Sean McBride as well. But Sean has completed his pit stops for the race. So let's just check back in with Brian Mandeville and Omar Badou. Mandeville still leading, keeping it nice and tidy. Unlike Omar Badou, is clearly pushing that Mercedes to its limit everywhere they go. Mandeville, just the attitude of the car, the body language. Mandeville seems a lot more in control. He's got a much more neutral car than Badou. Just shows how awesome the setup is. With the same car, very different driving styles and handling differences between the car. Omar Badou did manage to fall down to about a second further back than he is now, so it just shows Badou is really struggling to get past Brian Mandeville. But if this might be the one, Omar Badou, the closest he's been in quite a while to Brian Mandeville, but just again not close enough to really make a move. Brian running a little bit wide. Poor Badou just showing his nose where Brian doesn't want it. The Schumacher is no overtaking here. Well, purposeful overtaking there anyway. Not really an opportunity. Badou clipping the grass as well. Also coming up on some GT4 traffic. I believe that is in the form of B coming up in their Porsche. It is. They move out the way for the Mercedes to come through. There is also the 36 of Florian here, managed to get past these two and scamper up the road as well. There's the 111 of Damieo is just leaving the pits as well. He is still in the lead of the GT4s, and once he goes across the timing line for the first time, we'll be able to tell if he's held on to his GT4 lead while completing that pit stop. As we see Florian here come through as well. But Omar Badou is up the inside of Brian Mandeville. Can he just make the move stick? Mandeville will have the inside for the Mercedes, but no, decides to tuck back in. Mandeville looking after his tyres, I reckon. But a good move there from Omar Badou. Finally manages to get it done. And now he's just got to focus on getting as far up the road as possible, create a gap big enough that he can take a pit stop and still perhaps come out in front of Mandeville once they're all completed. I think that worked out quite well for Mandeville there. He kept him behind as long as he possibly could and forced Badou to make the move. Good move there. Well, for both of these drivers, really. So as I mentioned, Damiao, he has fallen behind Joel van der Valk with that pit stop. Damiao just about to approach the Schumachereses. Omar Badou getting a bit impatient behind the GT4 there. Really had to viciously pull out to the left. Has in fact allowed Brian Mandeville to catch up slightly, but if Brian makes a move on Badou, I'll be very impressed. Yes, Joel van der Valk, now the leader of the GT4, still yet to make a pit stop, so I suspect he will drop down the order a little bit. Probably down into net third, because B is also only 7 seconds behind Tammy Ayo. He'll be within his eye line. It's always easier having a target you want to hunt down, something you can see, something you can actually to put a distance to. He's made 4/10 on AO in his outlap. So this will be one to watch for the rest of the race. This is going to be for the net win of the GT4 class with 36 minutes left. Both drivers having completed all of their pit stops. This will be going down to the wire. So as I mentioned, pit stops, Malik Martin in the pit lane as Jamal Badou and Stangle Branson make their way through, quite literally. Malik Martin. Look at the dirt on that McLaren. Oh, I love the detail in this game. Yeah, Malik at the back of the GT4 field. Be interesting to see where he comes out compared to Derek Rudder once Derek has completed his pit stops as well. So as I said, Jamal Badou in the pits, Jaguar Branson left as well. Florian here has managed to jump Stangle Branson in the through their pit stops. Also, I did wonder whether here would have pulled the blind and also to have completed their pit stops. Ryan Quinn. So with Javon Codrington for company as well. So, those yet to complete their final pit stop, we have Dominic Livier in his Aston Martin, also Grant Willamot, who is only just under 6 seconds behind, so this is a battle that could easily go to the wire as well towards the end of the race. Wilhelm Weirich has completed his final pit stop, currently sitting pretty in third. Then Chris Corbin in fourth place, yet to complete his final pit stop as well. Probably drop behind Santeri Rantala when he does, compared to, and should come out in front of Jamal Badou if my calculations are correct. So yeah, then Rantala in fifth, just lapping Brian Mandeville, and Oisin Wilson in the Nissan GTR, the sole GTR on the grid, currently in sixth place, yet to complete his final pit stop as well. A few scuffs, a bit of paint missing on the front of that GTR, covered in dirt as well, but doesn't seem to be too much harm done. Seventh place, Jamal Badou, he's come out of the pits on his outlap now. And then, of course, Omar Badou yet to complete his final pit stop as well, as we were mentioning extensively earlier. Joel van der Valk, the current lead GT4, also yet to complete a pit stop, but expecting him to fall behind Damiao and Sunky B once he's completed his stop. Dixon Hurst, speaking of which, is in the pits, the current fourth place GT4. I think does he live near the end of the pit lane, or has he already completed his stop? He's already completed. Oh no, there he bails in. BMW coming to a stop. And then Derek Rudder also yet to complete one of his final pit stop. His day is well and truly upon us now. 9 AM in game time. Mercedes has mascara on. Now, as I say that, Grant Willemot also in the pit lane, as is Chris Corbin. So they've all decided to blink at once. Grant Willemot gets underway, goes through Chris Corbin, who probably won't be too far behind getting moving himself. Oisin Wilson also in the pits. The final round of pit stops have commenced. I reckon Willemot's gone for the undercut of Dominic Olivier here. Olivier still yet to pit, just coming into the coming up to the chicane, final part of the lap. Whether Olivier decides to pit on this lap, we'll wait and see. Reacts to Grant Willemot. No, he decides to stay out. So Olivier sticking to his strategy. So it does mean now Virek has gone up into second place and will surely retake the lead once Olivier has completed his pit stop. In fact, Ryan Mandeville has found himself in front of Omar Badou. Has Badou gone off? Badou's pushed it too hard, found himself in the grass, I reckon. Mandeville's... Well, it's round 2 with this ding-dong. Now Badou's got to get past Brian Mandeville again. In fact, he's going to do it much easier this time. I reckon Mandeville's probably let him through there. The speed difference there was immense. So either Mandeville is having to fuel save like mad, which I suspect is a possibility. He did have to pit with an hour and 20 left. So yeah, the speed difference going on there. I reckon Mandeville's whacked it on a higher engine map, reduced the fuel consumption, just trying to see it through to the end of the race. That is currently the closest on track for position altercation, I should say. So they're just behind Kevin Manning, currently in 20th place in the GT4s. Now see Dominic Olivier making his way around, just about to reach the half an hour remaining mark, I should say. Just a little clip of the grass there for Dominic. See the stern look in his eye, just not blinking at all. Concentration levels. In fact, Omar Badou has found himself with a 5-second penalty. I'm wondering whether that was to do with the incident of his excursion, whether someone else was involved, and that's the reason he found himself a bit further down the order. I'm not sure. Interesting to see. Read the stewards' sheet at the end of this race, find out what happened. Of course, Grant Willemot and Ryan Quinn have had to serve their penalties from earlier in the race as well. See the AMG go through the Schumacher races. So let's catch up with Dami Ayo and Song Ki-bi. Let's see how the battle for GT4 lead is there. You can see Dami Ayo in the distance there, just going through the Schumacher S's. It's Dominic Olivier, the overall leader, comes through as well. So since we last saw V coming through, he's managed to pull in about a second on Dami Ayo. Still half an hour left of this race. It's still very much all to play for. Anything can happen between, as I keep saying, my favourite phrase of the day, it seems, coming through. In fact, so we're going to jump to Santeri Rantala and Grant Willemot. Rantala has managed to pull himself within a second of Grant Willemot. So, after Willemot completed their pit stops, Rantala was about 3 seconds behind, but now finds himself right under the rear wing of that BMW. The Finn versus the Brit. That's lovingly displayed on the bonnet of his car. To the V8 Sing in this Ferrari, hunting down a very different sounding V8 in the BMW. It seems the BMW just has the edge through the more high downforce corners, but on the brakes the Ferrari just manages to close up that little bit more. And through the Schumacher S's, the BMW managed to pull out just what looked like about a 10th for Rantala. Now coming into some heavier braking zones, I'm expecting to see the Ferrari just start to close up a little bit more. So I'm not quite sure of the age of the tyres on the two of these cars. Now Rantala well and truly in the slipstream of that BMW. He's managed to make 2/10 on that lap. Only 2/10 off his best time as well, a 54.5 that time, go to 54.3. Grant just running a little bit wide there. Though I'm wondering if that is his preferred line, but it doesn't seem as quick through there as the Ferrari. Bit of a couple of frame drops there, well done game. Yeah, Ferrari, you can tell, just has perhaps a little more grip compared to the BMW. In fact, he's letting him go. Ah, that's clever. Rantala has himself a 5-second penalty, and I reckon Willemot's let him through to perhaps keep in the slipstream. Maybe even save some fuel. That's an interesting move there from Grant Willemot. Well, they are of course both Turn 1 drivers. So either Rantala got on the team radio and said, "Oi, move it, I'm quicker," or Grant is playing the long game here and is hoping he can keep within 5 seconds of Rantala. And then he doesn't have to fight him either and can keep the time to Olivier, who has completed his pit stop, incidentally. Dominic Olivier, number 19. In fact, number 78 is stationary at pit entry. What's going on there, Jamal? Where are you? Jamal Badou was stationary. Let's see what his lap time is here. Good 2 minutes 9 seconds. So he was stationary for a good 13 seconds there. He must have just lost it coming around the final corner. Managed to keep it going. I don't think he's lost any places. But if he was hoping to try and catch Chris Corbin, that's really not gone well for him. But yeah, Grant Willemot just losing touch slightly of Rantala. Further 4/10 gone since we saw them last. I think Rantala probably just started to pull the strings there and say, "Can you move out of the way, please?" Try and catch up to Olivier. Oh, that makes sense. Olivier is only 5 seconds up the road to Rantala. 25 minutes of this race. Rantala's going to be pushing like crazy to try and get any sort of hope of getting a podium at this point. That 5-second penalty, he's got to put a 5-second gap to Grant Willemot, while also perhaps hoping that Olivier and Grant will fight each other and move themselves further back, and maybe even keep second places. If he manages to overtake Olivier. This is all very intriguing coming into the last parts of this race. Of course, Vierick has checked out. He's going through the final chicane. He's 40 seconds in the lead of Olivier. He's got nothing to worry about as long as he keeps it together. Dispatches the GT4s. Sonkipi, who's managed to close in another second on Damieo as well. 4 seconds between those two. See, both of them had shot there briefly as Damieo makes his way past. I think that was the M4 of Dixonhurst. So it's all heading up towards the later stages of this race. And Rantala has pulled out another 4/10 on Willemot, over 2/3 of a lap. So I think Grant just politely moved out of the way as a teammate there, let him through. So, this is all to play for. The GT4's really getting up in the grill of Vierick. There's Kevin Manning, Dixonhurst and Damieo all scrapping. None of them for position, but all having a good time on track together, it seems. fact, that is Javon Codrington as well. Codrington and Dixon Hurst, another one that might hot up towards the end of the race. Just 2.5 seconds between them. And with this traffic, as Damiot just runs a smidge wide there. And Dixon Hurst also having a muscly time past getting through Kevin Manning. There's also B in the background as well. As Dixon Hurst just runs onto the gravel. That's going to allow Kevin Manning back through. Will it? Or will he decide to stay behind? There's also B flashing his lights coming through. Yeah, Manning decided to stay behind. We'll also probably need to move out of the way of the second place GT4. Wait and see if they do. On board with B, the bonnet cam. I dare say, will Kevin Manning just let off the throttle and let through? A little bit. Not easily. A little bit of a slide there from B as well. Well held though. He's got to try and hunt down first place. This is going to last just coming up to 21.5 minutes remaining as B crosses the line. Setting at 2:07.2, it's fastest so far, 2:06.1, about a second off his usual pace, but competing with all of these back markers, you expect it to be a little slower. There's also Dixon Hurst right up the back of Javon Codrington as well. This gap has closed immensely. So this is really all to play for in the GT4 field. Yet to complete his pit stop, I notice as well. The only driver yet to complete all of their stops. Kevin Manning just coming back onto the track, causing Oisin Wilson to take some evasive action. So now, Dixon Hurst, he doesn't want to lose too much time in letting B through. He's got Javon Codrington to worry about further up the road. But likewise, B wants to get past as quickly as possible and get hot on the heels of Damiot. 2.5 seconds now between them. That's it. Filter in behind. B, that was very close to taking out Oisin Wilson there. But he did the right thing. Just follow the traffic through. The gap was created by the GT3, slotted in. Just nearly took him out in the process. So it's Oisin Wilson now goes past Javon Codrington. Oh, Omar Badu has now come into the pit lane to serve his final stop. That'll be intriguing to see just where Brian Mandeville's going past him already. So Brian Mandeville going up into 11th place. But we'll stick with Javon Codrington and the GT4s for now. Just to see how this develops. There is the number 78 of Jamal Badu coming through the GT4 field right now. He might play a part. Oh, Javon Codrington runs a little bit wide there. Manages to gather it together, but that's just going to allow Dixon Hurst even further into his clutches. But Dixon just seems to be lacking that little bit of cutting edge right now. I know there's still 20 minutes left. That's still quite, it's a sprint race distance. But with the varying degree of tyre condition on these cars, just to see how it'll get on. Javon Codrington. Interesting, seemed to want to let B through, but then Jamal Badu influenced B's ability to go through, but now he's got the inside. Is Jamal making it 3 wide? Oh no! Javon Codrington had been hit by Sonky B there into the wall right at the closing stages of this race. I think, that's very unfortunate. I think Jamal Badu coming up the inside of Sonky B spooked him, went right, and Javon Codrington was still there, but that looked like it was all on Sonky B. That is very unfortunate for Javon Codrington. Just been ruined there by Sonky B in the wall. And down front of that Aston looks very damaged. I dare say there is some heavy damage on that Aston Martin. That looks borderline uncontrollable. That is so unfortunate for Javon Codrington. Let's just jump to Sonky B. I think it didn't look like there was much any contact between him and Jamal Badu. But Jamal Badu made it 3 wide. I was thinking to myself, I wonder if Jamal would make it 3 wide. He did. I think that spooked B. He went right into Javon Codrington. And Codrington just had nowhere to go and was pushed into the wall. We'll let the stewards decide that. B does have a 5-second penalty. So I'm wondering if that was a nice, quick, easy steward's decision there. But Dixon Hurst, that has allowed Dixon Hurst into 4th place for the GT4 field. And B is now even slightly further behind Damieo, who's managed to pull out a couple of seconds more on the Porsche driver. Dominic Olivier comes through in 2nd place. So Olivier is quicker than Rantala, has managed to pull out further 3.5 seconds since we last saw them. So Rantala at the minute doesn't seem to have much hope in catching Olivier and holding on to that podium spot. In fact, Willemot is back within a second of Rantala. The 2 turn 1 drivers on together on track, but Willemot knows he doesn't actually have to make a move with that 5-second penalty of Rantala. And after the race, that will be decided for him in getting that podium. So this is the closest on-track battles at this point in the race. Just over 16 minutes left, as we're coming up on Sean McBride in his Porsche GT4. Oh, just holding them up a little bit. Sean entitled to his line, but Rantala misjudging it slightly. Catching up, Grant a flash the lights. He's trying to get in Rantala's head, knowing that anything is possible. Any little mistake from Rantala, Willemot will capitalise, there's no question about that. Grant also dialing up the inside of Dixon Hurst. Dixon doesn't really have a hope of catching Joel van der Valk. They're about half a lap apart. Joel is currently 3rd of the GT4s. There's a bit of track to himself as he comes through turn 8, the Dunlop curve. And is also quite far away from the 2nd place battle, 2nd and 1st place battle that's about to develop. So, assuming Joel can keep it together, this will be a good 3rd place for him. So, after Derek Rudder's pit stop as well, he has managed to fall foul to Kevin Manning. Kevin up into 19th place, and Derek Rudder down into 20th. Malik Martin also in 21st place. Malik did have a cracking start, but just fallen away as the race has gone on. I know he had that incident at the last corner as well. Now finds himself some distance away from Derek Rudder. 42 seconds, so I suspect a couple more incidents from Malik Martin has led to him falling that little bit further down the field. But Kevin Manning is slowly catching up to Sean McBride, just 4.8 seconds behind McBride. Oh, as I say that, Grant Willemot has managed to overtake Santeri Rantala. Rantala was falling away at quite a rate from Olivier, so I'm wondering if Rantala's tyres have just gone. Willemot spied the opportunity and thought, oh, I'll just do it on track. There's no need to wait to the end of the race. If I can do it on track, why not? And interesting to see over the next lap whether Grant can just start to pull away even further. As you can see Malik Martin going through the final chicane. Yes, and Terry managed to catch up quite a lot on the brakes there. Going down into turn 1 for the 55th time. It's a 2-hour race. I guess it's a 24-hour race in 2 hours. There are so many twists you could put on that. I just, you know, when you try and think of a joke, and you set it up. You know, you do the first line and then you realise your joke doesn't make sense. I just did that. I stopped myself from saying a rubbish punchline. You didn't even know where it was going, because I didn't. But anyway, I'll stick with Grant and Santeri for now. And Santeri just seems to have found a bit of a second wind behind Grant Willimot here. Did fall to about 7 tenths behind as Javon Codrington kisses the gravel on the outside of turn 6. Grant flashed the lights. Javon letting off quite early on the throttle. In fact, running even a little bit wide there onto the marbles, making sure he gives them all the room they need. Meanwhile, Kevin Manning is still catching Sean McBride. Likewise, B is catching AO. The GT4 field is going to be the one to watch in the dying moments of this race, as well as the battle for third place. Although, of course, Rantala, is going to have to overtake Grant and pull a 5-second gap if he has any hope of retaining this podium. So, with 11 minutes left, Wilhelm Weyrich leads round 5 here at the Nürburgring, the CSM ACC Championship. As he's just coming up the inside of Joel van der Valk. And then Dominic Livier in second place. He is just coming up to put a lap on Jamal Badou, who sticks out the way, nice and safe. Learned from his earlier lessons, I think, of getting involved in the GT4s. And as we saw, third place, Grant Willimot, and then Santeri Rantala together on track together. Rantala with a 5-second penalty for some form of contact, I imagine. Not too sure who with. Yeah, fifth place, Chris Corbin, the Apex Fever driver. Just coming down to turn 1. Then we have in 6th place, as we saw, Jamal Badou having 1 or 2 incidents in this race. Then 7th, Ryan Quinn, who was having a cracking battle with here, Gulbranson and Omar Badou and Wilson much earlier in this race, about half an hour through, but has managed to just, over the past hour or so, has just been driving to himself. Keeping the pace, making sure he doesn't have any incidents, and a good 7th place for Ryan so far. If Jamal and Chris make any huge errors, he will obviously capitalise on them as well. 8th place in the Lexus, Florian here. Just making his way down into turn 8, Dunlop curve. With, I believe that's Chris Corbin, just about to come in and put a lap on him. Then 9th place, Jan Gulbranson. Quite a distance behind Florian here, so again, if Stjan's going to make any more places through this race, he's going to have to hope for a mistake from the drivers in front. Oisin Wilson in 10th, the GTR, the lone GTR, the new GTR to the grid as well. Doesn't look so new anymore with all those scuffs and tyre marks and dirt on it. And Brian Mandel in 11th place, who had to complete his pit stops very early. One of them, for whatever reason, didn't seem to want to register. He's been reversing back and forth, trying to get it to sort itself out. And then I think completed the next one on the next lap, and it's been fuel saving ever since. Trying to wean every single litre out of that car. I'd be interested to know exactly to what extent his fuel will be at when he crosses the line. And then 12th place, the last of the GT3 cars, is Omar Badou. A very colourful paint scheme. I think Omar is just had a couple of quite a few incidents early on in the race. It just meant he had to drop back through the grid. He was fighting for 7th place before all the altercations transpired. I believe that's Gulbranson just about to make his way through as well. So Badou runs fairly wide. Still, get on the track. There you go. Keep on the track, Badou. But in first place, the GT4s is Dami Ayo. He's qualified 2nd, got in the lead very early, and then lost it again to B. But as the pit stop started to happen, B did pit very early without completing a tyre change. So maybe to repair some damage. And Has been playing catch-up to AO ever since, but AO is still in the lead by about 3 seconds. It was closing quite extensively. In fact, I will jump to ruin my running through the order. Sean McBride seems to have just had an off. Kevin Manning has pulled quite an extensive gap between the start-finish line and before reaching the end of Sector 1. So whether these two were on track together and had coming together, but Kevin Manning has managed to overtake Sean McBride for 18th place. It's just a shame. I think I was just a couple of seconds too late to witness that. Sorry about that, everyone. But Kevin Manning has managed to overturn Sean McBride for 18th place. As Omar Padu comes through as well. So where was I? Yeah, Song Ki B in 2nd place, the GT4s, 14th overall. As he makes his way through, coming up to the final chicane, just about 3 seconds back, 3.7 seconds back from Damiao. He was closing quite considerably, but I think a couple of mistakes just creeping in towards the final stage of this race, meaning he's starting to drop back a little bit further. 3rd place GT4's Joel van der Valk, just cruising by himself really. He's got no one really to aim for, not unless AO and B decide to take each other out, and he's got acres of space behind. Dixon Hurst is just crossing the start-finish line, and he's his closest competitor behind. Well, speaking of Dixon, there he is in his BMW M4. Beechburg Racing, currently about 1.5 seconds slower than his best time. And then in 4th place in the GT4's Javon Codrington. Javon did have that altercation with B about 10-15 minutes earlier. Put him into the wall. It looks like he did come in to repair that. The car did look undrivable, so dropped quite the fair way back from Dixon Hurst. Just a lap down on him, which is very unfortunate, because it would have been a good battle to the line between Hurst and Codrington, but it wasn't to be. So then, as we saw, Kevin Manning in 18th, who just recently overtook Mr. Sean McBride. Chromatic GT4 came in. Then 20th place, Derek Rudder. He's currently just being lapped by Ryan Quinn. Derek did have a good start, made a couple of positions early on, and just fell slowly back down to the order. A couple of incidents as well, found himself getting stuck on an imaginary wall just to the right of where he is just there. Not quite sure what was going on, just one of those gaming things, I reckon. And then bringing up the rear of the field, Malik Martin, but 21st is still some valuable points for Malik Martin, of course, with people dropping out as well, the likes of Paul Rees, John Petchier, and James Dill did all start the race, but have disconnected at various points throughout the race. Oh, Malik! Well held, son. Just got a little bit too eager on the loud pedal there, and but managed to hold it together. That was good going there, Martin. Well done. But meanwhile, Grantala and Willamont still on track together. The BMW just managed to fend off the Ferrari. Of course, it's not really worth Willamont fighting this too hard, because Grantala has a 5-second penalty to serve. So if Willamont fights too hard, he'll just lose time, and Grantala might go past and pull out a 5-second lead, which of course he doesn't want. Keep hold of this podium. Of course, he'd like to do it on the road. He's not going to let Grantala past, but he doesn't want to make it too difficult and end up causing himself more harm than good. And I do believe Kevin Manning has landed himself a 5-second penalty. I think that was probably for the move that sent Sean McBride round and allowed him to overtake his fellow GT4 runner. Sean McBride's going to have about 3 seconds to close up. He's going to try and be in a shout of capitalising on Manning's 5-second penalty. So this is the closest on-track battle we have. Grantala Willamont. Ferrari versus BMW, Brit versus Finn. Also approaching at GT4 of Joel van der Valk. Behind these two is Mr. Chris Corbett. About 30 seconds behind, so Rantala in no real risk of losing the place to Chris Corbett, unless of course this battle decides to heat up. So it's a guaranteed 4th place for Rantala, assuming he doesn't bin it. But if Willemot has an unforced error, then that might be 3rd place for Rantala as well. Mr. Sonky B not quite having the pace to approach the back of Damieo. Just maintaining a gap of about 3 seconds. It's been fairly consistent the whole race. They were separated by about 1.8 seconds, I think it was, at their closest point, about 2 seconds, but B did get involved with the incident with Jerron Codrington. Also, Jamal Badou just pushed them back slightly. As you can see, AO just in shot there. When someone's that tantalisingly close, he's made up about a second there on AO over the past sector, so AO obviously having some trouble with, I think that was the number 27 of Stangle Branson going past him earlier. And then also approaching the back marker, Javon Codrington as well. In fact, B is catching up to AO at a rate of knots here. This is going to go down to the final lap, and it will be the final lap next time around. Wilhelm Weyrich is about to cross the line to start his final lap. He has had a very convincing race this whole time, really. There was a bit of touch and go with Rantala in the early parts of this race. Separated by about 4/10 for a good 10-20 minutes. And then Weyrich just said, see you later. Got up during the pit stops, pulled out quite a substantial gap. Rantala had a spin, and I think an altercation with another car as well, causing the 5-second penalty. And since then, Weyrich has just pulled away and ended up with what seems to be a very convincing win. I won't jinx it, but he's got just under 1 lap left. And then he'll have, gone to victory in round 5 of the CSN ACC Championship. But we'll flick back to B, who has managed to work their way up to within a second of Damieo. Jump back to Weyrich as he crosses the line, but this is the battle to watch. I think Rantala and Willemot fight is pretty much sorted, unless Willemot finds the gravel or a wall. It's just wide on board with B, making their way down to turn 8 for what will be the final time. Damieo's just got to keep it together, and it'll be a very well-deserved win for the Nigerian driver. A little bit wide there for B, cuts back, tries to get up the power as much as possible. AO maintaining the gap of about 8/10. Also approaching Jerron Codrington still, but Codrington probably won't play a part, too far away. Oh, quite a lot of understeer there from B. You can tell they're really pushing the car through the Schumacher S's. Just that has allowed AO just to scamper up the road even more. AO just running a little bit wide, but meanwhile, Wilhelm Weyrich is about to come round the final corner. As he does, Wilhelm Weyrich, a little bit of skating, goes to the pit wall and celebrates winning round 5 of the CSM ACC Championship. Well done, Wilhelm Weyrich. A very commanding win then from the German driver. Just jump back to B and AO. They are approaching the final points of the lap. B right under the rear wing of Damieo. But I think AO's just done enough to hold off B of what turned out to be a very tight battle between the two leading GT4s. And AO does indeed win the GT4 class. Well done, Damieo, coming from second on the grid. Next across the line was the number 19 of Dominic Olivier, coming to finish in second place. A good drive from Dominic. Next will be I believe that is the number 36. Florian here, coming home in 9th place. Nope, the number 86, so it was in fact Roisin Wilson. Dixon Hurst crossing the line, as well as the number 78. 22 and 92, so Grant does in fact hold off Santeri Rantala, and with Santeri's 5-second penalty, it was always pretty much a given. Joel van der Valk will be also about to cross the line to claim 3rd place in the GT4's 4 category. Be another good podium for Joel van der Valk. Always looking to get as high as possible, as all drivers are. And then the final drive to cross the line will be Mr. Florian here. The 8th place Lexus coming home. Good drive from the German there. And that's it. That is round 5 of the CSM ACC Championship over and done with. I really hope you've enjoyed it. There will be post-race interviews with the leaders of GT3 and GT4 class, maybe a few select others as well. But that has been a phenomenal 2-hour race here at the Nürburgring. I really do hope you've enjoyed it. So while the drivers complete their cool-down lap and they come into the pits, we'll just have a short 30-second minute break because I need to rest my voice and have a drink, and then we will have some lovely post-driver interviews, get their opinions and see what they thought of the race. So don't go anywhere. So as the drivers will just start to fill the interview room, we'll quickly wait for them to do that, jump into them. We may just hear some post-race talk between them all. Apologies if there's any bad language, but luckily, God, who is it that usually likes to just swear at the end of a race casually? Just throw it in and completely throw off the broadcast. I can't quite remember, but luckily they're not here this time. So as they fill the room, we'll jump in and get some instant post-race impressions. Hello everyone. I hope you all enjoyed taking part in that race. It was certainly a pleasure to watch and commentate over you. Well done, Wilhelm, on a very commanding win in the end. What is it like from your perspective?
Yeah, basically I have to say, unfortunately, that we do with the Porsche at the moment a kind like a test session, yeah, because we absolutely try to change the car for turn 1, like the main car for the World Endurance Series, to a different car because the Bentley is just not competitive anymore. And it was, for me, it was a pleasure to drive the Porsche today because actually it's nice to have a car which has a working ABS and traction control and not too bad to the tires. I'm just watching through it at the moment, and yeah, but I'm very happy. The GT4s, from my perspective, they had been very nice. Yeah, very very friendly, very giving for overtaking. So that's a big thank you to the GT4s and at this point from my side. And obviously the fight in the first beginning with Santeri, we had a kind of like a gentleman's agreement. So I said to him, and if he's quicker, then I just let him pass. And that was all good. I'm very happy to have him in CSM as well. And yeah, thank you so much. I'm quite happy today for this test race. And yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, it's been a pleasure having you, and always good to see you back in. And I'm sure you're sticking with winning ways, the number one on the car. So well done. So yeah, I'll come to Dominic Olivier, a solid P2 on your own in the end there, though. But you and Grant did have a good battle towards the middle of the race.
Yeah, it was certainly a very eventful race. Having Willem and Santeri back was definitely very good to have them back, to battle Grant and I and Chris. He spiced things up a little bit. Yeah, at the start, I tried to be as clean as I can with Grant. We had a really good battle in the start, side by side for a few corners, and he just ended up on top and got held up a bit behind him. I don't know if maybe his pressures were a little bit off, but I definitely had more pace than him, but I just couldn't get by. And once I decided to pit early, I did have the jump on him, and he tried the opposite strategy by going long, which he actually ended up with better pressures throughout the middle stint of the race, which it was very hard to predict because we had maybe almost a 20-degree swing in track temp. So it was just a yo-yo. At one point he was catching very quickly, and then in the end there I got my pressures right, so I was able to put more time there. So it was a good race, good fun. Willem just destroyed the rest of us, so we'll have to walk away with with our heads down on that one.
Well, I think it could still be head held high though, because it was interesting how Grant decided to go for the undercut first of all, and then you went for it second, just to see if things could go your way. So with that, I'll come to Grant. Interesting race there towards the end with Rantala, but it was definitely, I think, Olivier the one to aim for.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. A few things that didn't quite go my way. Dominic was a little bit quicker than me at the beginning of the race until, well, I mean, the second he got past was like the second where I finally sort of got my act together and the car started to feel really nice. So I was sort of stuck behind him for 6-7 laps. Felt I could go a fair bit quicker. Sort of banked on it being some rain at some point, so I tried to drive as long as possible. Even the setup I went with wasn't a full dry setup. I was convinced there was going to be some rain, which never came. A couple of incidents with GT4s, and we'll see how the stewards deem those. But yeah, maybe another day P2 was possible, but Willem destroyed everyone. I knew he was going to win anyway. So well done for that. And on to Hungaroring.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll love that. But with that incident with Petchia right towards the start of the race, what quite happened there?
Well, most of the other GT4s were coming out of that corner, and you sort of drift back across to the right hand side of the track to take the racing line for the left-hander, and I was just going to stay left and let him have the racing line, but he decided he wanted to go left as well. And we hit, and I got 5 seconds, but in the end it didn't really matter. I had a bit of damage. It probably lost me a little bit of time, which I had to repair, obviously, but in the end I was just chilling with Santeri at the end. Another gentleman's agreement, I think.
Yeah, I did wonder that when you let him by originally, but it was a good showing, good third place there, Grant. Well done. And
thank you.
On the mention of that incident with Petchia, I'm just going to quickly jump to Chris Corbin and say, well done for holding that immense slide across the grass. That was a bit of a brown pants moment, to say the least.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't hold it all the way. It still ended up spinning on me, but yeah, it could have been a lot worse.
And apart from that, a reasonably solid race for yourself.
Yeah, it's, to be honest, after that, like, I drove the entire first 45 minutes with badly flat spotted tires, and I was just dropping pace all the time, and then when the night came through, the pressures were off, and it was an uphill battle for the whole race, so I don't think I could have done anything better than that.
Yeah, I think you touched on a good point there. The 24-hour cycle, doing a whole 24 hours and 2 hours really played a part in a lot of people's incidents. But one man that seemed to relish in it was Damieo. Dami, well done on a very tight win in the end there. How did you sum it up?
That felt good. It felt good. At the end of the day, I just tried to run away from Song B as best as I could. I don't know what happened to him in the first stint, but he kind of dropped to the back of the field, and I got P1 and just ran from there. So yeah, I'm happy. Finally, I got the bride. No longer the bridesmaid. Actually won a race.
Yeah, no, it was good going. You remember, was it 2 rounds ago, 3 rounds ago? Yeah, you were wondering when the first race win would come, but it was definitely a well-deserved one.
I know. It worked out okay. I was just focused on staying as consistent as I could because I knew that he was fast as well behind me, and every time I made a mistake, he would chew out a second or two from me. So, yeah, it's a good win. I'll take it and I'll run with it.
Perfect. Well, I wish you all the best of luck for the next round. Also, is Sunky in here?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, so good second place for yourself as their first race as well in the CSM Championship. Are you happy with that?
Well, I mean, obviously, I think everyone was expecting a bit more from me because, especially if you look at the quali phase, the first mistake I made from the first mistake on in the race in the first spin, I just dropped back, and that's obviously, I'm gutted. I think it shouldn't have happened. It's just a mistake, honest mistake by me. But I think if you finish P2 in your first race, then I think it's okay.
Now, I'm not going to lie. I struggled to hear most of that. You were quite quiet for for all of that, but just want to repeat that slightly.
Okay, can you understand?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, it's all good.
Well, sorry for that. Well, I mean, obviously, I'm here with turn 1, and I think some other people who are in turn 1 expected a bit more from me. But I think at the end of the day, P2 in class after receiving the drive-through penalty, it's okay. I'm happy with it more or less, and I'm just looking for the next event now.
So the next event, do you expect to be doing the same sort of thing? Perhaps push for that P1?
Yeah, I think I'll get a maiden win.
Good man, that's what I'd like to hear. And then finally, Joel van der Volk. Good P3 for yourself, but a bit of a lonely race.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was going to say. It was not really much going on for me. I think I had a little run-in with Corbin, I think, at one point. I think we kind of miscommunicated on the track. I think I may have cut him when I probably didn't think he thought I was going to or whatever, so my bad for that, I guess. Thanks for waiting, though. But yeah, other than that, it was pretty boring race for me. Just kind of kept my consistency as best I could, and that was it. Happy for Dixon. We did a P3, P4, so I was happy. So good for the team today.
Oh yeah, that's the important thing. The team did well. Valuable points to bring home, and a podium's not exactly a bad thing. So
that's it.
I hope everyone enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed racing. I hope you enjoyed watching at home. This has been round 5 at the Nürburgring for the CSM ACC Championship, hosted by Carib Sim Motorsport in conjunction with Turn 1. You may have noticed there are a whole heap of Turn 1 drivers in here. If you're at all interested, join their Discord, join our Discord. If you want all of your sim racing needs, all the way through from rallying to ACC, of course, things like Automobilista, that's the word, Race Room, all that sort of thing. Hit us up, see what we're about. Of course, do subscribe to the YouTube channel. Remember to like the video, hit the bell icon, all the good YouTube stuff. And we will see you next time, 2 weeks' time, round 6, Hungaroring. I'm sure everyone's looking forward to that. And yeah, we will see you all then. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.